An elf girl hands him a single gold coin as she says that this is a chance for him to get out of this kind of life, but it is still up to him to change it. The story takes place in the Fairy Kingdom, a labyrinth city of Artoria. A city where dungeons could appear out of thin air is enough reason for many adventurers to gather here to test their items and skills. However, in the dirty alley of this city sits Astolfo, his eyes dark and stomach grumbling. He is hungry, but does not have any money. As he gets up to arrange something, some hooligans ask if he is going to look for herbs for usual. They say that he has a good pocket money and wish him the best for gathering a lot of money. If those herbs are still there, that is. Astolfo only stares at them before going his own way. However, the townspeople notice him and start gossiping that he got caught up by those hoodlums again. They call him a weeder boy and mention that he is just a pushover for getting his money taken over again and again. He came to this city after being kicked out of his own house out of poverty, but he did great avoiding slave traders. They praise him for being diligent and a fighter for not getting dragged down by the kind of environment he suffered through. Leaving these voices behind, Astolfo makes his way through the city and into the outer gate. The guard immediately recognizes him and asks if he is going to gather herbs today as well. Astolfo admits that it is the only thing he can do, but the guard is kind enough to tell him to not push himself hard and wishes him the best. However, Astolfo bumps into someone and does not receive kind treatment by the bulky man, even though he is the one who fell on the ground. The bulky man's companion is no different and asks him to check his purse, but the bulky man grabs Astolfo by the collar and wants him dead. Fortunately, the guard interrupts and tells the new faces to keep down or they will be kicked out. However, when he notices the bracelet on the man's arm, he recognizes that he is a silver-class adventurer. The bulky man feels smug as he says that it is because of the hard work of adventurers like him that this city can enjoy a prosperous and peaceful life, so he cannot just kick them out. The guard does not like him one bit, but still lets him into the city as he asks about their business there. The adventurer says that he was only thinking of testing his abilities in this rumored labyrinth city. Astolfo watches the silver band in awe before saying that it will be him someday. He runs far away to collect some herbs, but his hunger is making him slow down. Even if he wants to pick some fruits, there are ferocious monsters inside the forest, and no matter what, bare hands are just not efficient. He wishes to have a tool or at least a knife as he continues to do his work. He keeps thinking that if he had a weapon to fight monsters, he could have gone deep into the forest. If he could go into the dungeon, if he could fight by himself, he would definitely change and get out of this place. Astolfo is unaware that someone has been moving towards him and is now standing right over his head. Upon realizing this, he moves after being startled. The woman laughs and asks if he is surprised. Astolfo says that he is not while looking at the beautiful woman. He notices her blue eyes, white skin, and long ears before taking a peek at the splendid set of equipment, which is way beyond the ones owned by the adventurers from before. He wonders who she is, but the girl is the one to start the conversation as she comments that he is surprisingly familiar with this as she notices that he can even distinguish the poisonous plant look-alike from the real one. Astolfo honestly tells her that he bought the information from the guild, to which the girl says that is a good thing since there are some people who love and only think about money, but at least they know their stuff regarding pricing. She says that the selling price of herbs is definitely not cheap. Astolfo tells her that there's nothing he can do as he does not have family or money, and since this is the only income he has, he is willing to do this even for small money. The girl scrutinizes Astolfo and says that he should have been in a better state even after all that, so why does he look like this? In the heat of the moment, Astolfo lets it slip that his money gets stolen. The girl looks surprised, so he has to explain that since he cannot stay in an inn, he can only sleep on the street, and because of that, his money keeps getting stolen in his sleep even if he hides it. The girl simply sighs as she says that the humans are hopeless. She heard about how rough the life is in the city, but she thinks it is still laughable to know the actual truth. Astolfo wants to excuse himself. She has nothing else to say, but she asks for his name. When Astolfo introduces himself, the girl tosses something towards him that he catches. He panics to find that there is a 10,000 yen gold coin lying in his hand. The girl says that this is more like an information fee and the compensation for disturbing his work. Astolfo still finds it hard to accept something like this, but the girl shushes him and asks if he cannot just accept the things that are given to him. She knows that he does not want to end up in this state, and all she has given him is the chance to get out of here. Whether he is going to use it or not is all up to him. Astolfo knows that he can get himself a dagger with this amount of money and thinks that he can change his life. The girl says that he likes a hardworking kid and asks him to hang in there. Astolfo stares at her but is filled with determination to do what this light elf Winnie-san has told him. It is embarrassing for her to be called Winnie-san, so she tells him that her name is Stella and wishes to meet him again. As she is retreating, Astolfo notices a golden bracelet around her arm that tells him that she is a gold-class adventurer. He is filled with determination to reach that level someday. So Astolfo's next destination is Fleet's armor shop. He looks around the shop but is grabbed by the owner, who mistakes him for a thief. However, when the owner recognizes Astolfo, he lets go and comments that Astolfo looks like a wreck as usual, while telling him that he does not have any tasks for him today. The owner jokes if Astolfo is here as a customer for a change. The owner did not expect Astolfo to take out the gold coin and for him to want to buy some weapons because he wants to become an adventurer. The owner praises Astolfo for landing himself a gold coin, but is direct when he says that he would not be able to get an armor with his amount. Astolfo wants to get what he can without wishing for the refinement of the stuff, so the owner pats his head as he says that he would not let him down. He also tells Astolfo to take a bath as the shower fee is also included in the bill and asks his daughter Key to take him there. Astolfo sniffs himself, but the owner tells him that it is important to take care of himself if he wants to become an adventurer. Kay takes him to the bathing area and tells him that it is not a hot one, but there is water in the basin that he can use. She also gives him soap and tells him to wash his hair thoroughly as his head is quite dirty. Astolfo thanks her and starts with the cleanup. Key, who is sitting outside the door, apologizes for not being able to help him all this time. She tells him that her father also worries about him, so she is very happy right now. Key hears her father call for her, so she puts the clothes outside the door and leaves, but Astolfo is unable to reply to her. Later, the owner is sitting on a sofa when Astolfo returns after his bath. Astolfo thanks the owner for the clothes that the owner found around the house. The owner gets to business and gives him an iron sword, one set of adventurer clothes and shoes, a sturdy bag, and with a belt. Everything is 10,000 yen. He also mentions that the food is also included in his payment. Astolfo is unable to say anything in disbelief, so the owner asks if he is not satisfied. Astolfo tells him that he is satisfied but asks for his reasons for doing something for him to this extent and doubts all this is because he brought some money. The owner tells him that is the obvious reason and asks him to look outside the shop. Astolfo peeks outside to find people like him in the alley, but the owner says that those jobless, sorry beings might be bigger than Astolfo, but even with those big bodies, they do not even have the courage to just try to fight off a monster, and that is why they can only fall and rotten away now. Even if they will end up either in jail or on the execution stage, they still would not pick the fight. The owner asks about Astolfo's age, and when he tells him that he is perhaps 13, the owner says that he has a business so he does not have much money to help a small customer like Astolfo, but he wants to see a rascal like him working hard to get up and not end up as a rotten being, so he is going to support Astolfo for that. Astolfo is speechless, but the owner urges him to eat the bread that he prepared. Astolfo thanks him, and after a single bite, he says that it is good. It is totally different than the weeds he ate when he did not have any money, so he feels like a human after all this time. He cries as he eats and says that it is so good. The owner is surprised to see him cry and asks him to drink as well. After wearing his adventurer's suit, Astolfo comments that the blade looks like something precious, but the owner assures him that he did not get him anything above his budget since it is just an ordinary iron sword that was made pretty nicely. Once Astolfo is all ready, the owner says that he looks like a proper adventurer now. Even Astolfo thinks that he looks like somebody else entirely because he never knew that he is able to change this much. He now knows that he has to say his gratitude to Stella. The owner's daughter Key prompts Astolfo to get loads of money and promote their shop after that. Astolfo is excited to do so, but the owner tells him to not take any pressure from her wordings. Astolfo takes his leave after saying his goodbyes but cannot help but look into the alley of hooligans. He thinks that he is a human now thanks to the money he had and will need more money in order to keep being a decent human. That is why he needs a good source of income, and for that, he needs to become a grown-up adventurer who is able to get lots of money so that he can meet up with Stella with confidence. For all this to happen, there is only one place to go. The reason why this city is called Labyrinth City and the reason behind the undying flow of adventurers who come to try out their abilities is in the center of the city, a dungeon. As Astolfo looks at the dungeon, he gulps hard, but someone recognizes him as the Weeder Boy and pats his shoulder. Astolfo also recognizes the man as Nordy and says yes when he is asked if Astolfo is finally having his dungeon debut. Several caves that appeared in a random place at a random time are dungeon. Whether it is connected to the edge of the world of the gods, or the land of the mighty monsters, no one can tell for sure. Nordy explains that it is the dungeon down there and inside are countless monsters. Even so, there lies mountains of unbelievably valuable resources and treasures as well, and that is their job as adventurers to gather those. Saying that, Nordy takes his leave while wishing Astolfo good luck. Astolfo greets the guard guarding the dungeon. The guard can tell that this is Astolfo's first trip into the dungeon and his equipment is basic, so he tells Astolfo to not do anything reckless. He also tells him to not forget to bring back a magical stone that is usually located near the core. Astolfo is surprised to hear about the magic stone, but the guard says that it is only a service for him for today, as people usually do not give out information without payment. Astolfo heads inside while repeating the guard's words, but he does not know what a magical stone is. He has already come so far, but he knows that a little bit more and the things will be different from here on. As he reaches the exit, his eyes adjust to the bright light and before him lay vast lands. From here on, his days as an adventurer begin. Everything started with a 10,000 gold coin. "It's up to you how you are going to do this," said Stella, a famous adventurer who gave him the gold coin. So he also dreams of becoming a first-class adventurer. As he enters the dungeon, Astolfo is shocked to find the vast lands. There is even a sun, even though he is supposed to be underground, and the grass also looks real. Reality hits him hard that this is the dungeon, the mysterious labyrinth that no one can decipher. He cannot even guess what is there waiting for him, because the information about what is inside the labyrinth is so expensive that he cannot afford to buy it yet. But he knows one thing for sure: he has no choice but to continue forward. Astolfo makes a run for it, but the scenery does not change no matter how far he runs, so now he is starting to think that he lost his direction. Astolfo finally notices someone at a distance, so he wonders if it is another adventurer, but upon closer inspection, he finds out that it is not a human at all. The one to appear is a goblin, but he has not noticed Astolfo yet, so Astolfo knows that this could be his chance. So he launches himself at the goblin, but the goblin is faster in attacking him, shoving Astolfo several feet back. Astolfo curses under his breath as he knows that a goblin is supposed to be the weakest one of all monsters, so if he cannot even defeat it, he would not be able to move on. So Astolfo launches himself once again, dodges the attack of the goblin, and strikes his sword. The goblin falls over, making Astolfo believe that it is over. He remembers the guard telling him to take the magic stone, so he probes around the goblin's chest, but it wakes him. Astolfo is about to be attacked by the goblin, but is saved by some miracle of the goblin being shot. Stella appears on the scene, telling him to not let his guard down, as goblins are also known as a beginner eliminator because they are cunning creatures. Astolfo is surprised to see her, but she praises him for working hard. Astolfo thanks her for helping him, but she says that she was the one who volunteered, and oftentimes, people do not actually like to receive help and complain instead. Astolfo is shocked to hear that, but Stella says that it is amazing how she managed to deal with them till now, and they are the ones who barely survived in the end after she left them. Astolfo laughs and asks if she is also exploring the dungeon, but she says that she actually came here to meet him. Astolfo does not understand, so she tells him that she thought that if Astolfo ever used the gold coin she gave to change his future, then he would definitely come here. Astolfo is left more confused, but Stella continues to say that he looks better than she expected. Since it was not much, she thought he would buy a second-hand sword at least, but he actually got himself some meat stuff as well. Astolfo tells her that he asked the shop owner to choose for him, but Stella thinks that it is good like that because it means that he lived diligently until now. Astolfo does not know about being diligent since he has been living in the street since coming to the city, but Stella thinks that is diligence. Astolfo notices something and panics because the goblin he just beat is gone. He wonders if it was still alive after all, but Stella calms him down by telling him that it was just time up. She explains that this dungeon is different from the outside world's environment, so the monsters in here basically do not leave any carcass. So if he wants to look for the magic stone, he better be faster next time. Astolfo feels dejected, but Stella says that this was his first dungeon, so he can do his best next time. Astolfo feels like somebody just pulled his leg, and he even got help for it, but he still thanks Stella. He says that he would do better next time and excuses himself, without listening to a word that Stella has to say. She notices and picks up something from the ground while saying that there is still another time. Astolfo runs and runs until he finds a goblin. He repeats Stella's words in his mind and launches an attack, taking the goblin in a single strike. He hurries to take out the magic stone and is intrigued by it without knowing what it does. However, he thinks that it must be a valuable item since the guard told him about it. For now, he plans to collect as many as he can. He looks around to find that the goblin corpse is really gone. He wonders how they do it, but analyzes that the goblin suddenly appeared in front of his eyes rather than just suddenly appearing from somewhere, even though the weather is good and can see clearly. Either way, he has to be more careful from now on, like right now being attacked out of nowhere. Astolfo is shocked by the encounter because he is sure that there was nothing behind him just now. The goblin attacks, which he barely survives thanks to his sword, but is surprised to find a dagger in its hands. A dagger is not a usual weapon for the goblins, and Astolfo only has a sword, so does not think that he can win. At that moment, Astolfo throws his sword at the goblin and takes advantage of the distraction to punch the goblin. It falls down, so Astolfo gets on top of him to eliminate him using his own dagger. He feels thankful that the goblins are not bright creatures. He remembers his sword but guesses that it would be difficult to find it now. He worries about what Fleet would say if he finds out that Astolfo lost the sword, but having no weapon in here is the bigger issue right now. He glances at the dagger in his hand and wonders if he can keep it. The dagger is really sharp while his sword is already broken. Even if he finds his sword, he cannot use it anymore and has no money to have it fixed, so it is advantageous to keep the dagger. Astolfo closes his eyes and asks that God to give this dagger to him, but after the time up, both the dagger and the goblin disappear. Astolfo sits down exhausted because even the magic stone vanished while he was mumbling to himself. He notices something sparkling in the grass, and upon reaching it, he finds that it is a dagger. However, this one is different from the one before and even looks new, making Astolfo wonder if it is a gift from the god. That does not sound right, so he comes up with the second possibility that if he does not take the magic stone, then something else other than the stone would appear. However, it is a bit risky to check for himself, and he still needs to save a bit more money to buy the dungeon's information. The fact that everyone will be nice when you have money, and the Astolfo right now is barely on the edge of the line. He knows that the world is not kind to those who have nothing, but then maybe it is kinder than he thought. In the end, Astolfo thinks that he should look for his sword a bit more and moves a bit to find another adventurer near him, who is currently looking at his sword. Astolfo is the one to initiate the conversation, but the adventurer asks if the sword belongs to him. Astolfo thinks that he is a nice guy and confirms that's his sword while asking if he has always been there before. The adventurer understands the situation and asks if it looks like he just appeared suddenly in here like those monsters. Astolfo asks if that is not the case, so the adventurer says that he has been here since before. He explains that those monsters also do not appear just out of nowhere. At the first glance, this place looks like just a calm meadow, but is actually a very dangerous place. It may look like you have a wide range of view, but it is actually covering your eyes from what is after you, and that is why it is called Blindfold Meadow. The adventurer wants to know about the dagger that Astolfo is holding, so he tells him that it just appeared when he eliminated a goblin. The adventurer tells him that you will usually get something like this after you beat a goblin scout, and if he buys it in store, they usually sell for 30,000 yen. Astolfo is shocked to find that the dagger he picked up is worth 3 gold coins, but the adventurer asks him to not think too much about it and returns his sword. Astolfo feels grateful, saying that he just bought, so to lose it straight away is bad. The adventurer tells him to be more careful as you do not encounter good people all the time. Astolfo says that he has met only good people today, but the adventurer says that he will be his first bad guy then. Astolfo does not understand anything until he falls to the ground. The adventurer explains that he just used a tranquilizer which has immediate effect. However, depending on the case, the after effect is very light. He further says that this is the blindfolded meadow, so it is not surprising if anything weird is hiding behind the tall grass. The adventurer watches in disdain as he says that this is the blindfolded meadow, so it is not surprising if there is something behind the tall grass. Astolfo tries to move his body, but to no avail. The adventurer picks up the dagger while saying that it is an iron dagger with magic, but as a magical weapon, it is part of the lowest class. He wonders if it is going to sell at a cheap price at least, but Astolfo wants it back. The adventurer says that it belongs to him now and even threatens Astolfo to stab him since he is being noisy. Astolfo does not want to die, so he shouts for help. The adventurer laughs as he says that this meadow is secluded, so barely anyone can see or hear him, just like in a play called A Pitch's Corpse Slayed by a Goblin. He pities Astolfo for just having a bit of luck and suddenly meeting with someone bad like himself. Astolfo finds himself all helpless but still does not want to die, so he desperately wishes for someone to help him. In the next second, the adventurer's arm falls to the ground. He shrieks in pain and horror, but Stella arrives saying that it is indeed a pity to die in here and become a goblin's meal. The adventurer is horrified about his arm, but Stella says that there is no big injury. Astolfo calls for her, but she tells him to give her a moment to clean up first. The adventurer desperately looks for his arm, and as Stella approaches him, he calls for help. Stella finds it weird because he was the one to say that there is no use calling for help here. After her business is done, she approaches Astolfo and cures the paralyze. She asks if it is fine now, and Astolfo confirms by moving. He realizes that he is alive and thanks Stella while crying. Stella hugs him in order to calm him down while Astolfo keeps crying. He really thought that he was going to die there. After he has considerably calmed down, Stella tells him that she was chasing after him, so she is glad that she made it in time. Astolfo apologizes, but Stella does not mind and decides to get out of the dungeon first. She says that even if he wants to continue exploring, it is still better to take a little break first. She rubs his cheek and says that she has something to tell him once they get out of there. They arrive at a nice place outside the dungeon, so nice that it has Astolfo staring. After Stella offers him some hot milk, Astolfo asks about the place. She tells him that this is the inn she is staying at. The conversation will take a while, so she thought a place where both of them can settle down would be nice. Stella places the cup on the table before asking Astolfo if he wants to become her husband. Astolfo does not quite get it, so Stella explains that husband as in becoming a married couple. She says that he is absolutely perfect. Usually, anybody in his situation would end up as a twisted person at the end of the day. Even so, no matter how difficult the situation was, he has never lost sight of his ambition. He keeps working diligently and have a great willpower as well. It is not something everybody can do, so Astolfo passed. Astolfo panics and asks for her to wait as he tells her that he is only 13 and there must be tons of better people than him out there. Stella admits that is probably true. There is a specific reason why it has to be Astolfo. She stands up and exhibits a little fire in her hands using magic. She explains that an elf is a special being who can easily do tricks like this. By far, elves are the race with the highest level of magical power. However, they also have a shortcoming, which might be because of their high level of magical power, but they cannot conceive if their partner is from the same race. That is why they can only have a partner from a different race, one with a low level of magical power. With just a glance, she knew straight away that Astolfa has an unusually low level of magic power. In other words, 0. Astolfa is shocked to find such a thing about himself and asks for some explanation. Stella tells him that there is an extremely low chance for him to be able to use any magic at all. Probably he will have a hard time to even doing a beginner-level magic like Little Fire. Astolfa feels downcasted because it will be harder for him to conquer a dungeon as he needs to perform simple magic at the very least. The fact that he cannot use any of it is considerably fatal as an adventurer. Stella tells him not to be so dejected like that because if he beats a monster, magical power will be slightly absorbed by his body, and it will also enhance his ability as well. Originally, one would get an enhancement on the magical power that already exists within the body. However, Astolfa has no magical power in the first place, so no matter what, his magical power will not increase. But Stella thinks that it will enhance his physical ability instead. Astolfa absorbs the information that even without having any magical power, he can still become stronger. Stella tells him to focus on developing one specialization instead of being an average adventurer. And surely becoming a top-class adventurer will not be just a dream anymore. Stella tells him that she does not mind showing him the ropes of becoming an adventurer if he is interested. Having her as his mentor when he is aiming to become a top-class adventurer is a big deal. She even says that if he takes the offer, he will get a cute bride as well. She has put forward such an offer, so she expects an answer. Astolfa knows that if he comes across another burglar again next time he goes to the dungeon in his current state, that for sure will be the end of everything for him. So he has to become stronger first. He apologizes to Stella for not being sure about being a couple or that kind of partner with her, because right now, he's only thinking on how to become a full-fledged adventurer, but he does want her to become his mentor. Stella thinks about it and understands that Astolfa wants to start by being a master disciple first and agrees. Astolfa is surprised that she would agree, so Stella tells him that as an elf, there is no such thing as aging in her dictionary. Moreover, she knows that there are some cases where little by little the feelings get developed after forming a relationship as a master and a disciple. Ignoring her ulterior motives, Astolfa asks her to treat him kindly from now on. With this, Stella announces that they are now master and disciple and introduces herself once again. Astolfa also pays his greetings excitedly, but Stella asks if it is too formal and distant for him to call her master, he could definitely be her husband instead. But this is something that Astolfa would definitely not ask of her. After this matter is settled, Stella decides to head to the guild and get registered to a party, and then they need to take care of the broken sword. Astolfa also agrees that he needs to go and apologize to Fleet for breaking it, but this is not what Stella was talking about. She is actually interested in the shop that sold this weapon. But what's the real reason behind that smile? At the Adventurers Guild for wanting to create a party because he is still just a beginner adventurer. Stella tells Astolfa to show him the magical stone, and when he does, the man in the guild immediately recognizes that it is a goblin's magic stone and asks if Astolfa defeated the goblin himself. When Astolfa confirms, Stella tells the man that Astolfa is a pretty good adventurer, good enough to be in a party. The man buys the magic stone for the guild, and the guild Eltria's branch adventurers recognize him as a formal adventurer by renting him a bronze bracelet. The bracelet ranks go from bronze, copper, iron, red copper, silver, gold, and pure gold. The man urges the other adventurers to give their new comrade a big welcome, so they cheer and pay him their good wishes. Stella comments that this is how it is pretty fun. Astolfa is excited to be recognized as an adventurer and thanks everyone by bowing his head. Once they are out of the guild building, Astolfa asks about the meaning of their party name Gladio. She tells him that it is an old elf's language which means the vast land. It is the color of his hair, the land's soil, so it is very fitting. Astolfa asks the reason for such a name, so Stella tells him that she named it Gladio because she will nurture him into a man who can lead her someday. Astolfa simply laughs while Stella tells him that they are going to the weapon shop, and after that, they will return to the inn. Astolfa is surprised that is all they will be doing, but Stella says that a lot happened today, so they will end it there for the day. Astolfa thinks that even though he has been finally recognized as an adventurer, he has to fight as many dungeons as possible to become stronger. Someone calls him, making him come out of his thoughts. Astolfa is surprised to see Fleet, who is even more surprised to see Astolfa after just half a day. It seems like Astolfa was so immersed that he did not realize that he was already here. Fleet asks if he needs something, but before Astolfa can say anything, Stella greets. Fleet blatantly asks about the elf, but Stella is pleased to introduce herself as Astolfa's teacher. Fleet is shocked that Astolfa has a teacher and does not believe this elf one bit. He asks Astolfa if he is being used by this stranger, but Stella asks him if he thinks she has some other motivation to care for him. Fleet makes it clear that he would not trust a word from an elf. He asks if she is one of those newbie hunters, but Stella asks him if he gave Astolfa a neat weapon, even though he's a beginner, so that he gets targeted. Astolfa is confused about the war between the two, but does not say anything. Stella asks him to show the broken sword, which leaves Fleet shocked that it is broken. Upon inspection, Fleet says that a crack like this is pretty bad and asks if the opponent has a unique weapon. Astolfa apologizes for breaking it even though he just bought it today, but Fleet says that it is more important that Astolfa is safe. Moreover, he tells him that Astolfa would need to fight a monster to fix it up. Stella also agrees because she knows that this weapon is made from the dungeon iron. Astolfa does not know what that is, so Stella tells him that it is the name of an iron material from the dungeon. Fleet says that he collected dull swords from the dungeon, melted them down, and recycled them. It is said that the monsters and the weapons obtainable from the dungeon are all made with the magical power of the dungeon. Probably because of that, when you eliminate a monster, it cannot keep its shape and disappear. However, by slightly absorbing that magical power, adventurers can become stronger. However, Stella says that does not apply to just anyone. Weapons made from a dungeon iron that defeats the dungeon's monsters can be strengthened by crushing the magic stone, which contains a mass of magical power. In other words, it is a weapon that can grow just like humans. That is why when one fights the monsters using this weapon, it will heal on its own later. It is pretty handy in this way. Astolfa finds it pretty awesome but asks Fleet why he gave him such an awesome weapon. Fleet tells him that a normal weapon needs maintenance once in a while, but he figured that Astolfa cannot afford it. He claims that it was once a piece of junk, so it is cheap, and he is the one who picks his customers. After finding his hidden agenda, Stella says that the dwarves are something else. Fleet does not let her complain and says that he does not want to hear that from an elfy pompous creature. Fleet asks Astolfa about his next plan, since going into the dungeon with his broken sword is a bit alarming. Stella suggests Astolfa to sell that magic dagger that was dropped from the goblin for a new armor, but Astolfa does not want to let go of the proof of his efforts. Stella stabs him multiple times with her words as she reminds him that the dagger is a special weapon for a magician, because it is a dagger that can be used as a magic wand, but Astolfa does not have any mana, so he cannot use it, so having that with no mana is the same as useless. Even Fleet agrees with the elf that it is better to up his defense as well. He can see by looking at the broken sword that Astolfa is reckless during a fight. Astolfa cannot really say anything in his defense, so Fleet continues to say that if he had a shield, this sword would not have ended up like this. Moreover, armor can block attacks to a certain extent, and the range of fighting will also expand. Astolfa still seems indecisive, so Stella tells him that as an adventurer, he should always think before he acts, like what to do to be strong and what he needs to do. The whole point is for him to make the right choice. As she said before, this is just a suggestion, and he is the one who has to decide what to do. Astolfa looks at the dagger in his hands and knows what he has to do as an adventurer. He grits his teeth but decides that he wants to sell this and get an armor from the money. After this matter is resolved, Fleet tells Astolfa to be careful on the way back and ditch the elf soon because according to him, nothing good comes out of getting involved with an elf. Stella is pissed after hearing that, so Astolfa asks the obvious, if elves and dwarves do not get along well. Stella says that they are instinctively bad with each other, but admits that Fleet made a decent armor with hard leather armor, with a shoulder-length arm guard, leg guard, and a steel dagger as a bonus. She compliments Astolfa that it looks good on him, and he thanks her in return. However, Astolfa suddenly feels a shiver down his spine and glances back to find hooligans in the alley. Stella tells him to not mind them as they will not attack them, but it is best to be careful on his own because they are probably targeting him. Astolfa remembers them taking his stuff and feels another shiver. She knows that he is even a little careless. They will snatch his stuff. They will steal from him, kick him, and he will be back to that back alley. He will again have to work hard every day or there will be no tomorrow. He knows that there is no time to waste and tells Stella that he wants to be stronger. Stella smiles at him and says that it is good, but they will start tomorrow. Astolfa wants to say something, but Stella beats him to it as she says that she can tell what is going on in his mind right now. She even guesses it right that he is thinking if he does not work hard, there will be no tomorrow. Astolfa admits that she's not wrong, so Stella says that his way of thinking is valid but is wrong. She hugs him as she says that what he's thinking is glossing over the fact that he is throwing away his happiness today for tomorrow, because when people work hard today every day, it means tomorrow will not come at all. And from what he has heard, Astolfa has not been well rested. She tells him that in order to be strong, it is also important to rest when it is time to rest. Astolfo wants to object, but Stella shuts him up with her teacher privilege. Astolfo understands that these are the words from someone who wants to be so. He looks determined when he obeys the command and is determined to do his best tomorrow. At the end, Stella yawns as she says that it is time to sleep, but is surprised when Astolfo says good night. She goes over to him and asks what he is doing on the floor of the corner, but Astolfo gives an innocent answer that he is about to sleep. The poor soul even asks if he is disturbing her by sleeping here. Stella does not know what to say for once and picks him up in a bridal style, thinking that he will get sick like this. She tosses him on the bed, leaving Astolfo all confused. She explains that the double bedroom will be available late tomorrow, so he has to bear sleeping in the same bed for today. Astolfo wants to object, but is shut up by a very comfy elf. As he lies down, Astolfo glosses over the fact that a series of unbelievable things happened today, like meeting Stella and his first time in the dungeon. Of course, not everything went well, but he knows that he is steadily moving forward. He glances over his shoulder and finds Stella happily sleeping. She believes that tomorrow, and even after that, he will make even more progress. The next day, Astolfo finds himself in front of the guild once again. The guard recognizes him and praises him for working so hard. Stella tells him to have a safe trip, but Astolfo is shocked to find that he is not going inside. Her reasoning is that as her teacher, going together and helping him will just hamper his growth, so it is pointless. She thinks that now that he knows how dangerous the dungeon is, he will not act recklessly again. Astolfo gulps and shows his determination, making his teacher praise him for being a good boy. She says that she will be praying for his safe return as Astolfo leaves for the dungeon. He is determined to keep moving forward beyond this point. Astolfo is once again on the blindfold meadow. At first sight, this looks like a plain grassland, but it is a dangerous place where you cannot tell if there are any monsters hidden behind it. However, this time he will not let his guard down. As he is thinking all this, a goblin suddenly appears behind him. However, Astolfo knows that it came from an invisible place and into the visible range. He fights the goblin and is able to take him in a few moves. He notices that he can fight a normal goblin without much struggle now and wonders if he is getting stronger. Astolfo retrieves the magic stone and remembers that Fleet told him that dungeon iron can absorb magic power and repair itself by breaking the magic stones. It is a shame, but Astolfo has to fix his sword first, so he breaks the magic stone using his sword and watches as it gets fixed a little. He wonders if the magic stone's size has something to do with the monster's strength level and thinks that he will have to defeat stronger monsters. However, Astolfo frees himself from thinking about these weird things by shaking his head because he must not be greedy. He decides to do this safe and sound and just defeat as many goblins as possible for now. As he is walking, Astolfo hears a loud sound and looks back to find someone appear. The two look at each other and question if the other is also an adventurer. However, before they can initiate a conversation, the newcomer asks Astolfo to duck. He does as he is told and then actually saves his life. Astolfo asks what that was and receives an answer that was fire magic. The newcomer says that he does not have time to explain and asks for his help because the magician goblin has arrived. The goblin is seething, so Astolfo realizes something and kicks the newcomer out of the way of another fire attack. Astolfo notes that a fireball appears when the goblin swings its staff, so he has to defeat it before it swings the staff. Astolfo successfully stabs the goblin and asks if the boy is okay. However, instead of thanking him, the boy calls him an idiot as he informs him that there is still a fighter goblin left. Behind him, a goblin with an axe attacks Astolfo, but only his armed guard receives the hit. Astolfo cries out that he just bought it yesterday, so he cannot forgive the goblin. However, he does not think that his sword can block that axe, so he asks the magician boy if he has a spell to defeat the goblin. After some silence, the boy's like, nope. He says that he can only use standard spells that would not do any damage, and it will only anger the goblin even more. Astolfo feels worried that he is the only one doing anything here and faces the goblin. The magician boy asks if he can fight with a broken sword, but Astolfo tells him that he will manage as long as he dodges that axe. The magician then asks if he can defeat the goblin. Astolfo replies that if he cannot, then they both will die. The magician boy giggles as he agrees and says that he is going to shoot fire magic at the goblin. Although it will just blind the goblin, Astolfo can use it as an opening to attack it. Astolfo hesitates as he wonders if this guy is really an ally and if can trust him. However, there is only one way to find out, and Astolfo is ready to take the risk. The magician boy shoots a flame magic that blinds the goblin, and Astolfo takes this chance to attack the goblin from behind as it charges towards the magician. After the goblin is down, Astolfo feels relieved while the magician boy praises him. He apologizes for getting Astolfo involved, but thanks him nonetheless. Astolfo also thanks him for using his magic and asks if he can have the goblin's magic stone. The magician says that he can do whatever he wants since he defeated it, but it seems like the goblin magician's carcass is already gone. Astolfo quickly stabs the monster together and takes out a big magic stone. He begins to break the stone using his sword, which makes his sword as good as new. The magician understands that Astolfo is carrying a sword made of dungeon iron, but Astolfo makes a run for it. However, the magician boy grabs him as he still does not know his name. When Astolfo introduces himself, the magician boy says that his name is Kyle. He asks Astolfo about his next plans, so Astolfo tells him that he's going to defeat more goblins to earn money and improve his ability along the way. Kyle understands that Astolfo is going to absorb the defeated monster's magic to improve his ability, so he suggests joining him in hunting the goblins together. Astolfo stares at him before mentioning that he already has a party. Kyle points out that he is alone right now, so if they become a team here, they can overcome any obstacle. Astolfo is still hesitant, but Kyle practically begs him to accept his offer just this once. He mentions that he also came here to defeat monsters and improve his magic, and Astolfo has already seen the kind of goblins that lurk here. Kyle tries to convince him that Astolfo also wants to become stronger and says that their deal will not last forever. He just needs this company until his magic has the minimum amount of offensive magic. Moreover, it is more reassuring to have two people than to go by yourself. He even says that Astolfo can keep all the rewards himself. This offer is too enticing to reject, so Astolfo agrees. Somehow, he feels like he's being taken for a ride. Kyle can read that Astolfo is worried, so he says that he's going to become a great magician in the future and will pay him back, so Astolfo has nothing to lose in this deal. Kyle extends his hand as he says that he will be in his care. Astolfo shakes his hand while thinking that Kyle is a bit weird, but does not seem like a bad person. The second time Astolfo went into the dungeon's first floor, the blindfold meadows, he met a magician named Kyle being attacked by monsters. They defeated the monsters together, and so they decided to form a partnership. Astolfo thinks that Kyle does not look like a bad person, but wonders what will happen from now on. Astolfo asks why Kyle chose him, and when he sees a surprised face instead of a reply, he elaborates that rather than an amateur like him, it would have been better for Kyle to hire a veteran to escort him. Kyle says that he can handle small goblins, but instead of answering the question, he asks why Astolfo is so formal when he does not look any younger than him. Kyle asks Astolfo to not think about it too much and address him casually, but Astolfo does not think so. Kyle makes it clear that he is not hiring him. He is just Kyle 8 now, and he is here as an ally. At this point, Astolfo has no choice but to do as he is told. Being satisfied, Kyle asks if he bought any information about the dungeon's floors. When Astolfo tells him that he does not have any money to do so, Kyle decides to teach his companion. First, the goblin-type monsters spawn a lot on the first floor. It is mainly common goblins, but sometimes magician goblins and fighter goblins can come out as well. Kyle is going to tell more about this floor, but Astolfo hears some growling and watches a monster launch at them. He gets Kyle out of the way and asks if he is okay. Kyle confirms that he was surprised but is okay now. They both look at the monster that attacked them, and Astolfo does not know what it is. Kyle comes in handy as he informs him that it is a grass wolf. From what he knows, they are far more ferocious and violent kind of monsters, and goblins are nothing compared to them. He also heard that just 3 of these grass wolves can easily eat a whole fighter goblin. They are far stronger in packs, so if it is just one, they may stand a chance. However, the grass wolf howls, calling for its pack. Astolfo suggests running because it is the whole pack. There is no way that they can defeat it with their current strength. Kyle also agrees and strikes flames at it for a distraction while the two of them run. Astolfo notices that Kyle is behind him, so he grabs his hand while he runs. They stop once they are sure that they have outrun it. A wheezing Kyle accuses Astolfo of trying to unalive him, but Astolfo says that they would have been dead by now if they stayed there. Kyle admits that they are safe thanks to Astolfo because he cannot outrun that wolf with his own strength. Kyle says that he cannot afford to die here before he reaches his goal. Astolfo asks Kyle why he wants to be a grand magician so much. After a bit of silence, Kyle replies that he does not have the physical strength or the sense for the swords, but at least he is talented in magic. He was quick to grasp on the basics of magic right away and even learned complicated magic in less than a year. However, no matter how much he understands how it works, it will all be meaningless if he does not have the mana for it. Thinking the flame spell is something that looks like fire and somewhat hot when infused with magic, it becomes invoked, but nothing happened as a result. Even his family sneered at him and called him a sham magician, and it was something he could not accept. That is why he decided to prove him wrong. Astolfo is impressed by his resolve, but then Kyle asks about his reason because he is young and is already exploring the dungeon. Astolfo hesitates because he does not have any particular goal in mind like Kyle. He does not even know why he wants to become a first-class adventurer, so he dodges the subject in favor of thinking about their next move. However, they are suddenly attacked by a grass wolf, and Astolfo once again saves Kyle from its attack. He asks if this one is a different one from before, but Kyle tells him that there are only about 10 grass wolves on this floor, so it is likely that the wolf from before has caught up to them. The wolf jumps at Astolfo and he swings his sword but is unable to hit the wolf. The wolf attacks again and bites his leg, but this time Kyle shoves it away using his magic and runs to check on Astolfo. Fortunately, the wolf only bit his armor, but they do not think that it will let them escape a second time. Unlike goblins, Astolfo cannot grasp its movements at all. It might be even reckless to fight it head-on. He comes up with an idea, but he needs Kyle's magic for it. After explaining his plan, Astolfo dashes forward while Kyle shoots flame magic at the monster. Astolfo saw that the wolf was scared of Kyle's fire magic earlier. Even though the magic is not very powerful, he is sure that the monster will avoid it instinctively, so he uses this chance to get closer to it and let it bite his armor to seal off its movements. As expected, the wolf's fangs cannot cut through his armor, so he asks Kyle to do it now. Kyle is also glad that the plan worked and shoots flame magic on the grass wolf. At this moment, Astolfo finishes it off with a single strike. After making sure that it is dead, Kyle cheers for their achievement. He's glad that they are getting stronger with this, and Astolfo says that it is thanks to his magic. He looks at the armor and remembers Fleet's words that armor can expand his attack range. He thinks he now understands how to use it that way. Kyle thinks that it is not very lucky of them to run into a magician goblin, a fighter goblin, and a rare monster in one go. Astolfo is relieved that there is no monster stronger than this on this floor, but is surprised to find that there actually is. However, Kyle assures him that the monster is like a guardian of the floor, so they will not run into him unless they try to move on to the next floor. Astolfo wants to know about the guardian of the floor, but Kyle says that the information is not free, but you will tell him one day once they are ready to take on the challenge. Astolfo thinks that they agreed to team up temporarily, but does not say anything. Kyle reminds him to take the magic stone as it will disappear soon. Astolfo almost forgot about it, so he is super happy to get the magic stone. Kyle mentions that he seems pretty happy, just one of those, but Astolfo says that he is happy because this thing is what makes his tomorrow. Kyle is surprised to see him so happy and lets him take the stone. After that, they fight goblins in a similar manner quite successfully. Kyle notes that his mana has definitely increased, but it is still not very powerful. Astolfo thinks that it is pretty good, but Kyle tells him that the original flame is not like this at all. A higher-ranked magician can wipe out goblins in a single blow with just the basic flame. Astolfo remembers and tells him that he has seen something like that before. When Kyle asks, he tells him that she is like a master to him, and she is an elf. Kyle does not seem happy at the mention of an elf, but later admits that since elves are a species known for their strong magic power, he is just jealous of them. Astolfo suggests hunting some more to become even stronger, but bumps into someone while walking, even startling Kyle in the process. Before him stands an adventurer who asks if he is alright. The adventurer asks if Astolfo is alright, and he also has a copper bracelet around his arm. Astolfo apologizes for bumping into him, but the adventurer does not mind, as it is a nasty place after all. He glances greedily at Astolfo's weapon before asking if they have slain any goblin. Astolfo, the kind soul, thinks that he looks like a kind person and answers honestly, but Kyle interrupts by saying that they do not need to tell him that. The adventurer laughs that Astolfo has a fascinating friend and takes his leave. After he is gone, Astolfo questions Kyle for his behavior to another person, but Kyle tells him that person was dangerous. Astolfo says that he looked kind enough, but Kyle scolds him that a bad guy does not need to always look evil. A guy who comes up to you with a seemingly kind look on their face is the most dangerous. In his experience, that is the eye of someone who does something bad for a living. He explains that it is not just the monsters that can harm him, so he better stay alert. Astolfo remembers that he had that kind of terrible experience not too long before, and if Kyle was not here, he would have experienced it once again. He knows that he has not learned his lesson after all this time, so he needs to get a grip. Kyle looks at his depressed expression and further explains that when he sees someone like that wandering around, it will be dangerous to stay in one place, so he decides to return to the surface for a moment. After a moment of silence, Astolfo asks where the exit is, but Kyle does not know. Astolfo is shocked and looks around, but Kyle tells him that he cannot see it since they are in the blindfold meadows. All the fields they see now are vicious illusions created by the dungeon, so it is important to remember the direction you came from, which Kyle loses sight of when he was running around. Astolfo does not know why he is getting so worked up, but he is also foolish for paying attention when he exited with Stella yesterday. Kyle thinks for a moment and says that it is a bit of a gamble, but they have two options. First, they have to get the orb to return. It is an item that a scout goblin drops sometimes. They should be able to return to the surface in an instant with that. However, scout goblins have a low spawn rate, so they have another option. The information says that this space is estimated to be a huge square, and the entrance where they came from seems to be somewhere near the four corners. So first, they have to get to the wall, and if they walk along that, they will be able to find the exit. Astolfo asks if Kyle even has enough stamina for that because the floor is extremely spacious. He gets offended and claims that his stamina has increased after all those fights, so he will manage. So they head towards the wall while looking for a scout goblin. After taking care of a goblin, Astolfo says that they are all just common goblins and asks if there is a way to find them. Kyle tells him that there is no other way to see them without being close enough to one. However, that grass wolf from earlier managed to chase them by following their scent. Astolfo wishes that they were also able to use that ability as well, but Kyle actually tells him that there is a way for adventurers to track each other's mana, but Astolfo hardly has any mana, so that method is out of question. Astolfo feels uncomfortable when he answers, but Kyle can see that he is upset about something. He says that Astolfo is always making that "I have to do it" face, but Astolfo denies such claims, saying that he was just thinking that he should work harder. Fleet said, "Because you are a customer," and Stella even said, "I like you because you are diligent." So he thinks that he has to live up to their expectations, and if he does not, he will end up in that back alley again. Astolfo admits to Kyle that he wants to be the version of himself that everyone likes, so he has to be strong. Kyle does not know what he is talking about, but Astolfo says that is just his selfish request. He stands up to move forward, but Kyle grabs his shoulder as he says that Astolfo can talk to him and tell him how he got that idea and what he has been to. Astolfo looks scared because he thinks that if he reveals everything that has happened to him before he came here, things will change. However, Kyle says that he does not know what happened to him in the past, but he promises that this revelation is not going to change things between them, so it is alright to talk to him. After some hesitancy, Astolfo tells him everything and his reason to become an adventurer. Kyle looks gloomy, so Astolfo reminds him that he just said it was alright. Kyle really did not mind, it was just deeper than he expected. He can understand his thoughts and goals. Although he is not as extreme as Astolfo, but Kyle also started as someone who has nothing. If he had more mana, his family would have loved him, but does not shy away from telling Astolfo that he is an ambitious person, and that is something that everyone has in them. However, he thinks that Astolfo is a bit too generous for his own good. Somehow, he felt like Astolfo was rushing things desperately, and if he kept doing that, he will be overwhelmed in his goal. Astolfo confesses that Stella told him the same thing. He knows that he just cannot rush into things, so he asks Kyle what he is supposed to do. Kyle says that an ally is for times like this. At least when it comes to magic, he is here so Astolfo does not have to carry it all on his own. He thinks of Astolfo as an ally and wishes to become friends, so he tells Astolfo to depend on him more. Astolfo is surprised to hear that and hears another scolding from his ally. It's just that this is the first time that someone said that to Astolfo. Kyle is thinking about him, and that means that there is someone who cares. He wonders why it feels like something heaving in his heart is melting away. He thanks Kyle and says that he also wants to know more about Kyle, but is utterly rejected. Astolfo thinks that it is unfair as he just poured his heart out just a moment ago. Kyle says that he is alright and there is nothing to know about him other than the future Grand Magician Kyle, and asks if Astolfo cannot get along with him unless he knows every single thing about him. Astolfo clarifies that this is not the case and admits that he wants to be his friend. Kyle also wants the same, so he extends his arm out, saying that it is a friendship ritual. They once again greet each other as they bump their fists together. They still have to get out of here, get some sleep, and explore more tomorrow. Kyle asks if Astolfo is up for it all. However, Astolfo says that he would need to ask Stella first, but Kyle thinks that he is ditching him even though they just became friends. As they move forward, they find a huge wall in front of them, meaning that they are close, that is, if this is the right way to the exit. This is the gamble part of this method. The exit is definitely somewhere along these walls, but Kyle was told that the entrance to the next dungeon, the second floor, is also around this corner. There will be a guardian in the door that connects to the second floor, so in the case that they run into the entrance to the second floor, they will have to fight the guardian. Kyle says that they will have to fight it one day, but he does not think that they can win right now. As they move forward, they find a door but have no idea if that is the exit. It is so dark inside that they cannot see a thing, but know that if it is the exit, there will be a staircase leading up to the surface. However, if it is the wrong one, they will experience something that they are going through right now. Astolfo notices something move behind him, so they make a run for the staircase, but there is only one leading down. And before them is the guardian of this floor, ready to attack them. Seems like it is too late to realize that it is the wrong door. The guardian goblin attacks Astolfo, so Kyle uses flame to distract it, but it is no good since it knows that Kyle's magic is just for show. Not to mention, all its equipment is made of steel, so it is going to be tough to challenge it with their current equipment. Astolfo suggests running away, but Kyle does not think that is possible when he has heard that the bosses on each level are more agile than normal monsters. Astolfo says that since it is the guardian guarding the entrance to the next floor, it should stop attacking them once they go further away from the place it protects. Kyle also agrees, so they see a chance and make a run for it. They succeed because looks like it is not chasing after them all the way, but Kyle tells Astolfo to keep his defenses up after they are out of there. Looks like he was right, because as soon as they exit, Astolfo is attacked by an arrow, but fortunately, he does not get hurt. While they are paying attention to the arrows, a goblin appears behind them and attacks, which Astolfo barely manages to counter. He asks if it is a fighter-type monster, but Kyle tells him that the one with the bow is an archer goblin, and the one with the sword is probably a swordsman goblin. The swordsman goblin is more troublesome than a fighter, as he knows some sword techniques as well, so Astolfo needs to be careful. It starts fighting Astolfo, but it is fast. It is not as heavy as a fighter goblin, but it strikes fast, so Astolfo is trying so hard just to repel its attack. Kyle knows that he cannot support him with some lousy magic this time, and he might even hurt Astolfa if he hit him instead, so he is in a bind. As he is thinking about this matter, a couple of arrows come flying towards him, but he manages to dodge them. Kyle knows that he has to deal with the archer goblin as well, but notices that somehow the archer goblin is acting a bit weird and does not seem to aim correctly. After a little thinking, he knows what is going on and tells Astolfa to take care of the swordsman goblin while he deals with the archer goblin himself. Astolfa is surprised but is too busy to come to his aid. Kyle observes that the archer goblin is the same as him. It cannot get a clear shot while those two are moving around because if it is not careful, it can hit its partner. As the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm. Kyle uses his wand as a weapon, charges at the goblin, and hits it hard on the head, all the while insulting it that it will never be able to hit anything with rushing to shoot like that. Once the poor goblin is down, Kyle uses his wand as the weapon to turn it into mincemeat. Both Astolfa and the swordsman goblin see this horror show, and the goblin actually loses its grip, so Astolfa uses the chance to attack. However, even after getting hit, the goblin charges at Astolfa and punches him in the face. After rubbing his injury, Astolfa apologizes that a punch is not going to work on him and finishes the goblin with a single strike. Kyle gives him a hand as he says that he has done as well. Astolfa thanks him because his distraction helped him a lot, but Kyle says that it was all as planned. Astolfa is surprised that Kyle can fight like that, but Kyle says that in that situation, fighting head-on is faster and more reliable than chanting magic. In fact, that goblin was quite strong considering its choice of weapon. It was not very wizardry, but Astolfa could keep his eyes peeled for more. While joking around, they notice that the archer goblin is already vanishing. It is faster than before, but they can maybe get swordsman goblin's magic stone. However, Kyle notices something sparkling and upon investigation, finds something. He calls for Astolfa, who comes running towards him. They look at a black pearl, but rather than a magic stone, it is the homecoming pearl, which is shocking because they thought that only scout goblins dropped this. The information that Kyle bought also said the same thing, which means that they discovered the new information. If the information is verified as true, the adventurer will be evaluated and given a reward, and there is a chance that they will even record the name of the adventurer. Astolfa is super excited to hear the news while Kyle says that they ran into a lot of trouble, but turns out they are lucky in the end. Astolfa admits that if he was alone, he would not have noticed and would have thought that I was a magic stone, so Kyle is amazing. Kyle obviously feels happy but still tells him to stop with his buttering. He decides to go home for now but asks if Astolfa wants to challenge the goblin guard once again. They both agree that they will have to run away again if they challenge it again. Kyle says that this is the first time he is using the pearl, so Astolfa needs to stay close. Astolfa feels bad that he could not go on, but this time, he got to meet a friend. He never knew that going on an adventure with someone else could be so exciting, so he hopes to explore more tomorrow as well. Kyle asks the homecoming pearl to guide them to the surface, and with light too bright to open their eyes, they find themselves on solid ground. The guard on duty recognizes both Astolfa and the kid with the expensive-looking equipment from the call and can tell that these kids used homecoming pearl. Astolfa is so happy to be outside and shakes Kyle, but he feels sick because the world is spinning. He thinks that it must be a curse and he is done for. The guard tells them that they can get nauseous if they are not used to using the homecoming pearl, but it will go away with time. However, Kyle is very sick and throws up right there. They are finally back from the dungeon, so the next stop is the guild. The manager is shocked to see that Astolfa was able to get some rare items such as drops from the grass wolves along with most of the goblin magic stones. When trading, Astolfa receives a shocking amount of 48,000 yen. However, Kyle considers this a fair amount considering how many goblins they took down. The manager tells them to keep up the good work. Kyle tells him that he has some information he wants to sell about the homecoming pearl, but the manager remains unimpressed even after viewing the information because the guild has received this information many times before. In fact, many people are uncertain about dropped items information, so these days the guild only buys information from staff members or guild-designated adventurers who check it firsthand. Kyle thinks that that is lousy of people, and the manager agrees. Kyle apologizes to Astolfa for giving him false hope, but Astolfa does not mind as he is happy that they are back safely. Kyle still feels bad and decides to head back, but the manager tells them to be careful if they are going through the Craftsman Street since he heard that place is dangerous at night and some people were attacked and robbed recently. On their way back, Kyle notices that the place looks like a deserted street because all the lights are off, so it would be a good place for rogues to hide. Astolfa asks where he is staying, so Kyle replies that he is staying at Hoshimi Hitsuji Lodge, the same place where Stella is staying. In the next second, the two of them notice something and stop, and a couple of people surround them. They look like the rumored rogues who demand the kids to give them everything and they will let them off. Astolfa feels suffocated as the fear arises inside him that they will take everything from him again, just like back then. However, Kyle tells him to not be afraid as they survived the dungeon, so there is no way that they had lose to these guys. Kyle reminds him that these guys can't take anything from him, so Astolfa also feels confident. The hooligans get agitated by their whispering and threaten them with their so-called swords, but when they see are just threatening is not working, they dash for the attack. However, Kyle uses a mega vortex to subdue them. When Astolfa questions him, Kyle reminds him that his magic is not powerful enough to take lives. Another hooligan attacks Astolfa, but is met with a rebellion. Kyle reminds Astolfa that the hooligans are no match for him because there is a difference in desire. Astolfa realizes that he is not scared at all right now as he is out of that place, and it is not just about being ripped off anymore. He is not the same person he was back then, so he pushes down the rogue man and asks him to not get in his way because he wants to move forward. Soon after, the city guards arrive to catch those hooligans, so Kyle and Astolfa back off. They are even praised by one of the guards for putting up quite a fight, but Kyle snaps at him for being late and not doing their jobs properly. The guard does not mind the loud sound and calmly asks where they are headed. Astolfa tells them that they are just on their back to the inn, so the guard decides to escort them as an apology. However, Kyle does not want such a thing, saying that those people are no match for them. He stomps away but bumps into someone and falls down. One to be in his way is Stella, who welcomes Astolfa back safe and sound. She came out to check because she heard the commotion and asked if Kyle was his friend. Kyle introduces himself as he gets up and asks if she is Astolfa's master. Stella tells her name and says that she is sort of his teacher right now. Kyle notices that she has an expensive set of equipment that does not seem like it was made by humans. Moreover, that is only made for a high-ranking light elf only. Stella says that he sure knows his stuff and has a good eye for things. She asks if he also comes from a well-off family, and there are sparks as they stare at each other. Astolfa, the kind soul, does not understand why they are fighting each other, but they say that they are making their position known and making an impactful first impression. Stella takes another look at Kyle and asks if he is a magician and evaluates that he is still in progress, but is going to grow up to be an extremely skilled mage. Kyle does not want to be measured up without permission, but Stella giggles as she apologizes for doing so. Kyle asks Astolfa if he is really okay with her, when she has such a bad personality. Astolfa says that she is kind and tells her that he is actually going to explore the dungeon with Kyle from now on. Stella does not mind because she told him before that she will not be going to the dungeon together with him, but that does not mean that he has to go there on his own. So she will not stand in his way if he decides to team up with an ally. She even tells Kyle that she hopes that he can get along with Astolfa from now on, even though she does not know who he is and where he comes from. Astolfa tells her that Kyle is a friend and Stella understands that it is good enough for him. As they arrive at the inn, Kyle suggests that they discuss tomorrow's schedule again later and heads to his room while Stella scrutinizes him. She knows that he was expected to be a genius, but his mana was below average. Doing magic for sport is a waste for a genius, especially for Kyle's Fillard, the fourth prince of Fillard Kingdom. So Kyle is his nickname to the people he is close with. She giggles at the realization. When Astolfa asks what's wrong, she says that Kyle seems to be a bit naive in a different way than Astolfa, so she is sure that they will get along in many ways. She is looking forward to tomorrow. The next morning, Astolfa wakes up early and watches the hustle and bustle of the city from the room window. He is almost in a daze until Stella wakes up. He apologizes for waking her up, but she does not mind as it is already time for her to wake up. She looks at him and can tell that he cannot wait to go to the dungeon again today. Looks like he had fun yesterday and is even getting stronger. It seems like Astolfa did not notice, so she reminds him that he and Kyle defeated the rogues last night. He still cannot believe it himself, so Stella wonders if he feels accomplished. She says that she is looking forward to seeing how he grows and tries to be stronger, and asks if Astolfa is also excited. Looks like someone is more excited than Astolfa. Someone banging on their door and telling him to hurry up. You guessed it right, it is Kyle, who is pretty early. He says that they have got places to stop by before going into the dungeon, so it is better to be early. The first thing they need to do is have Astolfa's equipment repaired as it is ragged. They stop by Fleet's shop and greet the owner and his daughter. Astolfa asks if he is closing up his shop because he is getting the equipment inside. However, Fleet tells him that some rogues caused a scene last night with weapons they took from the shop, so the guards warn them to not put any weapons on display. He tells Astolfa and his party to be careful as well, but Kyle tells him that they were attacked last night, but they fought them off. Fleet is shocked to hear that and thanks Astolfa for his amazing feat. He looks unscathed, but the armor looks pretty busted, so Fleet asks if he is here to repair them. However, Kyle steps forward and says that they are here to buy new equipment. Fleet tells him that he does not know how much money he has got, but weapons are not something that can be replaced easily as it depends on the time and the place. Kyle also makes it clear that Astolfa's gear will probably only work for the goblins of the first floor at most, but they are going to the next floor. Fleet is genuinely surprised and asks if they have made it to the guardian of the floor. Astolfa tells him that they did reach it but could not get past it. However, they have defeated lots of goblins such as swordsman fighters, archer, magician, and grass wolves. Fleet admits that they are faster than he expected, and it has not been even that long since they started exploring. He asks Astolfa how he feels about the combat so far. After some thinking, Astolfa tells him that as the enemies got stronger, there were many situations where he just barely won. There were many times when he thought that he might have died if he made a single mistake, but he is sure that there will be stronger enemies in the future, and that is why he thought that he needed more powerful equipment to progress through the floors and move on. Kyle adds that if Astolfa cannot protect him, he will die soon. Fleet understands the situation and asks about their budget. Astolfo tells him that he has 48,000 yen that he earned yesterday, so Fleet excuses himself for a minute. On the other hand, Kyle asks Stella if the metal armor would look good on Astolfo. She knows that he is onto something, but Astolfo reminds them that he cannot afford that armor. Stella also says that the metal armor is definitely good for defense, but she thinks that it is too heavy for Astolfo. It may prevent attacks, but that is not good if you cannot move and fight back. In the end, armor could be useless if it does not match the strength of its owner, no matter how expensive and great it is. She thinks that it is best to use hard leather armor that would be easy to move and well balanced. Fleet is back and places the armor on the table. It is a hard leather armor, but Stella and Kyle can sense a strange magic power emitting from it. Stella asks Fleet if it is a beast leather and looks like she guessed it right. Fleet explains that the beast leather does not weigh as much as metal, but it can easily repel archers, goblins, arrows, and is hard enough to withstand hits from the guardian goblin. It is good stuff and Fleet can guarantee the quality. Astolfo is impressed, so Fleet says that if he wants this armor, he can sell it to him at a discount price. However, Fleet's daughter Key comes stomping and hits him in the head. She asks what he is doing when this is the armor that he was not able to sell because it has a story behind it. She tells him to not sell such shady stuff to Astolfo. Fleet tells her to shut up and claims that he was just about to explain it to them. Astolfo wants to know about the shady stuff, so Fleet explains that this armor was custom-made for a certain nobleman's child, but the child ended up dying in the middle of the production. So before they added the decorations and made the molds, the production was halted. There were rumors that it was cursed because of the use of beast leather. Kyle warns Astolfo to not touch it since not all curses can be lifted, but Stella has no qualms about touching the armor and says that it is not cursed, just a normal beast leather armor. Fleet also agrees with her but says that the adventurers are all about luck, so no one wants to wear something that is rumored to be a cursed armor. Even Stella thinks that it is a shame, so Astolfo asks about the price of the item. The price of 70,000 hits him hard, and it is Kyle who yells at Fleet for even bringing out such an item to them. Fleet defends himself by saying that this is the best and the lowest price he can offer. If they buy something with caliber elsewhere, they will have to pay twice as much. Even Stella steps forward to say that they cannot afford something like this, so Fleet suggests that he will mark this item as sold if Astolfo wants. He earned 48,000 yen already, so he can reach 70,000 yen in no time. Astolfo looks at Kyle, who tells him that he is not forcing him to go to the next floor today or tomorrow, so Astolfo can still build up his skills and make some money in the first level. Astolfo thanks Kyle, but Fleet asks him once again if he is sure about the unlucky armor. Astolfo thinks that although Fleet sometimes runs his mouth, he always thinks carefully about what he says and makes the best pieces of equipment suggestions for him. So he says that he believes in Fleet more than he believes in luck, leaving Fleet surprised. But today, Fleet gives him a protective gear to wear that comes with a small armor. The total cost falls to 10,000 yen. Astolfo asks about opinions, so Stella says that it looks good and Kyle says that as long as he has the protective gear, he should be safer going out. Both of them say that they are counting on each other and perform their friendship ritual, while Fleet and Stella smile in the background. Once they leave the shop with good wishes, Kyle decides to stop at a guild next. Stella explains that if they are going together, they will have to register Kyle as their new party member. Kyle agrees but says that he wants to look for one more person to join them. On their own, the two of them would be an all-offense party, so they need another person to support them as they go, such as a healer who can use recovery magic. Astolfo has his doubts that anyone would actually want to join their party, but Kyle tells him to not say it out loud. So they head in search of a new ally. Near the main gate of the Labyrinth Gate, a person arrives here for the first time. They think that it would be reassuring to have a friend to explore the dungeon, but they will not just accept anyone. It depends on what God has in store for them, but they are looking forward to it. At the Adventurers Guild, Astolfo and Kyle are scouting for new members but fail to do so because of their basic equipment and lack of experience whatsoever. Astolfo feels dejected, but he somehow expected it to end like this. The strong people refuse to join with beginners like them, especially the healers, because most of them prefer partners who are good on defense and attack. At last, instead of looking for a healer specifically, they decide to opt for someone they can trust. Astolfo knows that he should have asked for Stella's advice. Talk of the devil, and she arrives, telling them that the party list is finished, so she's going first. All that's left is for both of them to find partners, and it looks like she has a recommendation, but Kyle jumps in to refuse her offer, much to Astolfo's disappointment. Astolfo asks the reason for refusal, so Kyle explains that they can rely on her, but being able to be friends with the partners is a whole different thing. You want someone who can be trusted as the third person, because when they adventure together, they need a friend, not a pawn. Astolfo also thinks the same, so he says that they need to find a partner using their own efforts. But right now, it is clear that they cannot find a partner, so they decide to explore together and concentrate on improving their abilities. However, once they reach the dungeon area, they find some fuss there and are informed that the guy arguing with the guard is a healer, even though he's a dark elf. The dark elf finally snaps, and as he turns around, he starts glaring at Astolfo. They lock eyes for some time, but then the dark elf thinks of something and grabs his hand, introducing himself as Dorma and asking for Astolfa's name in return. Astolfa realizes that the dark elf's voice is unexpectedly high as he introduces himself. Dorma is still holding his hand when he requests Astolfa to explore the dungeon with him. Both Kyle and Astolfa are shocked to hear that, but Dorma claims that he is strong despite being a healer and proceeds to pull Astolfa towards the dungeon. However, Kyle pulls them apart as he tells them to wait. Dorma thinks that he is impolite for not introducing himself first, but anyone can see who is the impolite one. Regardless, Kyle introduces himself as Astolfa's current part member, but Dorma does not really seem to care about that. Now, all weight falls on Astolfa to explain that Kyle is the official party partner, so he cannot just leave him like that. Dorma thinks for a while and starts scrutinizing Kyle, saying that he seems like the type who thinks this is such a magical place. Dorma decides to let Kyle tag along, but Kyle really does not like his attitude. Dorma grabs Astolfa while announcing to the guard that these two are his party members, so he should be allowed to pass now. Once they are permitted, the three enter the dungeon. Astolfa panics at the sudden turn of events, but Kyle tells him to wait and watch for now. Apart from the sour personality, Dorma does not seem like a bad guy, and he is a healer regardless. Maybe he's a nice guy, better than they think. Once they enter the dungeon, Dorma stretches his arms, glad that he could finally get in, but is still frustrated at the fact that healers cannot go inside the dungeon alone. What a discrimination. Astolfa also did not know the fact that healers cannot go inside the dungeon alone, so Kyle tells him that if a healer goes inside the dungeon alone, it is the same as taking his own life. Kyle asks Dorma why he wants to try something dangerous like that, but Dorma says that it is because earlier this morning when he arrived in this underground town, he immediately tried to form a party, but everyone was disappointed and rejected him because he is a dark elf. However, Kyle points out that they all rejected Dorma because his personality is weird. The two start arguing, but Astolfa is the only one who notices that these two are a bit similar to each other. Dorma admits that the presence of both of them is very helpful, so he asks them to hurry up. However, before they do that, Kyle has a question. He asks which god Dorma worships. Bet you did not see that coming. Astolfa does not know about gods, so Kyle tells him that there are a lot of gods in this world. From various types of gods, healers can only worship one of them, only the god that sends them revelation. When in training and dealing with problems, healers will receive special magic from the god they worship. Therefore, the god they worship is connected with the magic they use. Most healers are adept in healing and strengthening, as well as magic for battle, but there are also lame healers that can only memorize absurd spells. Based on Dorma's expression and this party's constitution, it is not hard to guess that Dorma is one of the lame ones. Dorma claims that he can use strengthening magic even now, but Kyle wants him to spill it out. Astolfa asks Kyle to not corner the newcomer like that, but he is asked to shut up because this is important so that they are able to cooperate with him. Dorma seems troubled, and Astolfa understands the feeling really well, so he stands in front of him to say to Kyle that everyone has something they do not want to tell others. Kyle never said, if you do not know everything, that cannot be your friend, and he does not know everything about Kyle, like what magic he uses and stuff. Astolfa says that it is not so different from before because they want a friend, not a pawn. Kyle clicks his tongue, but he admits what Astolfa said is true, so he apologizes to Dorma for saying something ignorant. Astolfa thinks that if they are going to fight together, they may understand eventually, but Kyle does not plan on doing something annoying today. Dorma is touched by their kindness, so he thanks Astolfa and decides to tell them the god he worships in return. Astolfa asks if it is really okay, but Dorma says that this is a proof of his affection towards him, so it is fine. He reveals that the god he worships is Nilshanti, the god of underground armor. At first, both Kyle and Astolfa are stunned speechless, but then are shocked to hear the name of the god of underground armor. Astolfa is surprised that even Kyle is shocked, but he explains that usually the god of armor has a sharp ability. Astolfa does not understand, but it is hard for Kyle to explain, so he says that he will understand eventually after they fight together. Kyle requests Dorma to support Astolfa, and he agrees with pleasure. Astolfa knows that it has something to do with underground armor, but he is really curious what kind of god it is exactly. Once they go a bit farther, they find that there is no sign of any monstrous presence at all, which is weird because even Astolfa found a goblin here just yesterday. Dorma wonders if his attitude is exaggerating, but Kyle tells him to not let his guard down because the enemy might be hiding and watching over them. Dorma starts to think that it is tiring and might be useless when a beast appears behind Astolfa and leaps at Kyle. However, before Astolfa can do anything, Dorma steps forward and pushes Kyle towards Astolfa, while he smashes the beast using the weapon in his hand, shocking both Astolfa and Kyle. Dorma did not understand what was wrong with their faces when they were the ones who said he looked pretty strong like this. Dorma smashes the beast using the weapon in his hand, which leaves us wondering if this is the true strength of a dark elf. Astolfo and Kyle are amazed that Dorma defeated a grass wolf by himself. However, when Dorma goes ouch, Astolfo hurries over to him, apologizing for not being able to protect him properly. However, Dorma thinks that as an advanced guard, Astolfo has a duty he must do. The basics of battle say that an advanced guard deals with enemies' range attacks to protect the line on the back. And if it is just a grass wolf, Dorma says that he can deal with it alone, so they do what they must do. Astolfo is impressed by how reliable Dorma is, but Kyle tells him to not expect too much from him because if he faces a grass wolf alone, he will die. Dorma says that Kyle is just a burden, but he claims to be the brain of this journey, so starting from now, him being weak is not a problem. Dorma asks if Kyle has been like that since the start, so Astolfo remains honest in saying that he has always been like that. Kyle asks if he has a problem with that, but Dorma looks at him with pity as he says that he thought Kyle at least had some friends. Kyle is offended and asks if Dorma has any friends, but he refuses to answer that. Kyle teases him by saying that he wants to be his friend, but Dorma rushes to Astolfo's side for help. However, our cinnamon roll Astolfo says that if he can also be friends with Dorma, he would be very happy. Kyle smirks, but after a pause, Dorma agrees to be friends with them. As they continue on, Dorma is told that Astolfo wants to collect magic stones to gain money for a new armor, and it really is not exciting to proceed with their journey with the current equipment. Dorma says that he also wants to join them because he also wants to level up and move to the second level. Astolfo is glad to hear that, but worries that Dorma is strong and dependable, but Dorma tells him to rely on him freely from now on because they are friends after all. He also tells him to not be so formal with him from now on. Astolfo does not know if relying on friends is okay because he is under the impression that relying on others is bad. The monsters start manifesting, so the gang takes their stance. One to appear goblin fighter and goblin swordsman. Both of them are the goblins Astolfo defeated yesterday, and even though their levels are low, they are not worrywarts. Astolfo thinks they cannot defeat them both at once and is wondering how to proceed with the battle when Dorma steps forward, saying that he is going to deal with the goblin swordsman. He tells Astolfo to face the other because he himself would not be able to handle that giant. Kyle also joins in to say that he is going to attack first and hold against the goblins, and will leave the rest to the other two guys. Once it is decided, the gang starts the fight against the goblin. First, Kyle uses magic to hold them in place, giving Astolfo and Dorma the chance to attack. Astolfo is wondering if it is going to fall with just one hit from the front when he notices something behind him and barely dodges the attack. The newcomer is a goblin magician who is about to attack again, but Kyle beats it in doing so with an attack of his own. Kyle tells Astolfo to not get distracted by other things and to keep on going because he is not fighting alone right now. Astolfo understands and charges at the goblin, thinking that this is not his own battle, but the others are fighting as well. They need to combine their strengths to win. That is the meaning of relying on each other. For the sake of his friends, he cannot leave him alone, and because of that, you must keep going forward. He now understands that he can step further with his friends by his side, so he lands a final hit on the goblin while telling it to not bother them. Once the goblin is down, the gang celebrates their success because they can go further and beyond with each other. They got the magic stones from the fighter goblin and the swordsman goblin, but Kyle says that the rewards for today are not as useful. Kyle hopes that he can get drop items that might be useful for battles, but Dorma comes to the rescue, saying that he got a new magic from the battle before. The magic is called Heavy Weapon, which makes weapons heavier. Kyle is not impressed by the new magic, but suddenly realizes something and says that it might be useful to make his weapon heavier. Astolfo and Dorma have no idea what he's going on about, but Kyle says that he's going to hunt for goblins in this state, but the problem is, no goblins have appeared since the last ones. Kyle states that they need to eliminate at least 10 or 20 goblins for them to have enough money for new armor. Dorma, who has been thinking for some time now, says that their expectations won't come true, but the goblins gather in a place somewhere. Astolfo is shocked to hear that, but Kyle agrees that if they just wander around like this, there are chances of goblins appearing. Astolfo gets worried that it is dangerous for them to wander around like this in that case, but Kyle says that it will be a waste if they rush middle way to that place. Kyle thinks of having a gemstone that can bring them home. Astolfo asks if they can escape from such a place if they run fast enough, but looks like Kyle does not want to run away. In his defense, he says that they are going to run away at the right time. Their argument is still ongoing when an adventurer suddenly appears out of nowhere and falls beside them. Astolfo rushes to the adventurer while asking Dorma to heal him. Kyle notices that it is just an injury from their battle with the goblin, but the adventurer claims that the goblin they just fought had abnormal power which eliminated all their friends. They desperately seek help from our gang. The beat-up adventurer that suddenly appears before them claims that a goblin with abnormal powers appeared and all of his friends have been eliminated. The gang is shocked to hear that, but Dorma tells the adventurer to slow down and explain the details of what happened. The adventurer says that his name is Marison, a healer. Earlier, when he and his friends were going up to the second hierarchy, their party was attacked by a goblin with a sword. It suddenly attacked with a power beyond common sense. His magic user friend got destroyed with just one attack. Kyle and Astolfa only know of the swordsman goblin with a sword on the first hierarchy, but it sounds too strong for a swordsman. It can only be concluded that the enemy uses a special weapon. Marison claims that his warrior friend is still fighting with the abnormal goblin, but it could be dangerous, so he asks the gang to help him. Astolfa wants to muster his strength to help and asks the other two as well. Dorma does not mind helping, as helping someone who is in trouble is his duty as a priest. He asks Marison to show them the way, but Kyle does not seem to agree. Astolfa tells Kyle to hurry up or he will get left behind, but Kyle says that there are a lot of new hunters like Marison around, so he could be setting a trap. Even though what he said is true, it means he is up against a thing that a single could not handle. Kyle asks Astolfa if he really wants to go, considering all this. Astolfa seems troubled, but says that he cannot just leave Marison like that. Kyle signs as he says that if it gets too difficult, they will need to run. Astolfa agrees because it is not just his problem alone. Only he can protect Kyle and Dorma if something happens to them, because they need to be stronger. Soon, they reach the place where Marison and his party were ambushed. The gang can see blood splattered everywhere, and the body of the wizard who got beaten by the goblin. Kyle is about to ask about the warrior friend of Marison's, but his question is answered by what he finds in front. There is a goblin standing on top of an adventurer, a sword in hand, ready to slash him. However, the gang notices that the goblin's guard is down, so Kyle uses Volt magic on it, but the goblin manages to dodge it, shocking Kyle. Marison casts a speed assist magic that makes Astolfa's body lighter. They tell Marison to pull his friend to the back to heal him while the gang engages in a battle against the abnormal goblin. The sword in its hands seems really special, so they need to unleash the sword somehow. Astolfa attacks it, but the goblin easily dodges the attack just like he did with Kyle's magic, making Astolfa wonder if it is reading their movements. The goblin's strength is also something that cannot be compared to any other goblin they have fought so far. As Astolfa is thinking, the goblin attacks him, but fortunately, Dorma attacks the goblin in time. He scolds Astolfa for being lost in thoughts, but he himself is so busy in talking that the goblin is about to attack him, but Kyle saves him using his Volt magic. He tells them to get to their positions while also wondering what kind of goblin they are facing right now. Dorma looks at the abnormal goblin once again and says that it could be a goblin hero. He is not so sure because he got this from uncertain information, but a goblin hero is a very special individual who usually appears on the second level or up, but has only been seen once on the first level. It is definitely more powerful than any other goblin, which makes them come to the conclusion that Astolfa cannot just snatch its sword. Astolfa does not understand what they mean by that, but he has no time to ponder on it because the goblin in front of him is purposefully unleashing its own sword. The sword shines and ancient writing appears on the sword that Dorma reads as "cut all their ties" and warns his friends. However, it is already too late because the goblin attacks Astolfa, severing his arm. Astolfa watches his arm detach from his body in horror while his friends rush to help him. Dorma uses the heavy weapon to smash the goblin's head, who shrieks in pain before shoving Dorma away. Dorma realizes that the goblin is looking for its sword, so they need to end this quickly. Kyle steps forward to use his Giga Volt, but it does not seem enough. He asks Astolfa if he is okay and to hang on in there, but Astolfa is already wondering if he has really failed and needs to leave, just like Kyle said. He thinks that he has made a mistake again as he watches the two of them fight. He does not want to give up yet because he needs to protect them. Maybe he really needs to use that now. On the other hand, Kyle is still attacking the goblin using Giga Volt, but has already memorized the magic trajectory. Dorma also panics, but Kyle tells him to shut up because he is thinking. Once he watches behind the goblin, Kyle smiles as he says that it is a great idea. Once the goblin starts rushing towards him, Kyle gives a signal to Astolfa, who slashes the goblin using his own weapon. At last, they have done it, but Astolfa's beaten up. Kyle and Dorma rush to heal him, but Astolfa thanks God that both of his friends are fine. He is glad that he was able to defeat the abnormal goblin using his own strength, but he has passed out for now. Kyle and Dorma decide to give him time for rest because he has done a great job. The gang report at the Adventurers Guild that they succeed in defeating a goblin hero. However, when they are asked how they know it was a goblin hero, Dorma steps forward to tell them that he has been buying some illegal information from here, so he knows. Adventurers Guild worker confirms that the sword they brought along does match up with the information, so there is no doubt that it was a goblin hero. He thanks them for the valuable information and evidence and happily buys it for the guild as confirmed information. Suddenly, an older adventurer wraps the three in his arms as he praises them for being able to defeat a goblin hero. Other adventurers also start to appreciate them and even inform Astolfo that he almost rose to the bronze rank. The Adventurers Guild member says that they cannot rise that fast, but if they manage to conquer the second level, is a big possibility. Astolfo is amazed because the bronze rank is a rank for pro adventurers, so being able to achieve it, this quickly feels unreal. After getting some more attention and praise, the gang gets out of the building. On their way, Astolfo asks if it is okay to take the goblin hero's sword from Marison and his friends, but Kyle tells him that it should be alright because they almost died and Marison only said thanks since they saved him. Dorma asks about Astolfo's arm, so he says that it is absolutely fine, all thanks to Dorma and Marison's healing. Dorma points out that Astolfo's armor and clothes are all lossy, so they decide to head to the equipment shop as they also have to sell a weapon. With the amount of money they gain from the dungeon, they should be close to their goal. As they are heading towards the equipment shop, Dorma asks about Fleet. Astolfo tells him that Fleet is a very nice guy who has been taking care of them and their jobs for a long time. Once they reach the shop, Fleet is getting rid of an adventurer because he asked for the strongest weapon in the shop. His daughter, Kay, notices Astolfo, but when Fleet looks at him, he is shocked that Astolfo is already so scruffy in just a few hours. Once inside, Fleet observes the goblin sword and tells them that it is a degraded version of the goblin hero's sword with the ability to cut all their ties, which is regarded as one of the best. Astolfo asks if there are others like this as well, but Fleet tells him as far as he knows, the others are ranged weapons or barriers while some are trash that could only shine. Fleet asks if Astolfo is really going to sell such a good weapon, and when Astolfo tells him that he cannot really use it, Fleet offers 110,000 yen for the sword. Astolfo is shocked to hear that it costs that much, but Fleet tells him since the combination of abilities is great, then why not? Astolfo receives the money and, quickly calculating the money into 3, asks Fleet to sell him the armor for 70,000 yen. Fleet already knew he was going to say that, so he already made some adjustments for Astolfo to wear it right away. Once he is done changing, he asks Dorma and Kyle how he looks. Both of them say it looks good on him, and he even looks more reliable now. Fleet wants Astolfo's reviews about the armor, so he says that it feels like his power naturally increased. Even if he goes against a goblin guard, he feels like he will not lose at all. Astolfo thanks Fleet, but he says that he only offered what he had for the money he offered. Fleet asks what they are going to do after this, but Dorma's stomach interrupts the conversation. But excuse him, as he is not the one at fault because they have not eaten anything since they wandered around here. Kyle also agrees that they have not eaten anything since this morning and cannot fight on an empty stomach, so they make their way to rest and eat something for now. As they leave Fleet's shop, Astolfo touches the armor, glad that he was able to buy it. There was a time he thought he would never be able to buy it, so it is nice to see that their hard work paid off. However, he does not have much money now, and his friends seem to have found a rich restaurant. He refuses to go inside, but is dragged by Kyle regardless. The gang is once again in the dungeon, and they just need to defeat the goblin guard to move to the second floor. Determined, they head inside the spooky place. Kyle has a bad feeling about it when he hears some grunts, and voila, the goblin guard stands before them. They all seem out of it, but Kyle still tells them to not be scared because they took down the goblin hero, so they can take down this guy as well. He tells Astolfo that he just needs to follow the plan. The goblin guard's armor is made out of iron, which makes it very hard, and that is why they lost last time. However, since Dorma's mace is made out of steel, it is very effective against iron, and if you apply Dorma's heavy weapon spell on top of that, you should be able to break through the armor. Dorma and Kyle will start off by distracting it, and Astolfo can go all on. Once the battle starts, Kyle uses Bolt to shock the goblin guard. When it is busy facing the attack, Astolfo attacks at a weak point of its armor. It seems to work, but Astolfo needs to hit it one more time. However, more goblins start coming into the spooky place. It seems like the goblin guard called them over, but Kyle refuses to be scared off with just numbers. He asks Astolfo to take the goblin guard because they are going to deal with the small fries. Astolfo also agrees as he starts attacking the goblin guard and hits at a pivotal point, taking him down ultimately. With that, they have finally beaten the first floor of the dungeon. Dorma hands out the goblin guard's magic stone to Astolfo for safekeeping because it is important evidence that they have completed the first floor of the dungeon. Now, once they go down the stairs, they will reach the second floor. Without further ado, the gang once again starts heading through a spooky place. Astolfo wonders what kind of place is the second floor. The monsters are probably stronger, but it will be fine since he has got his 2 friends with him. He is sure that they will be able to take on anything that comes to them. The spooky stairs lead them to some kind of hut with creepy people inside. They find a black orb of return sitting in the corner, but it is another adventurer who informs them that it is an orb of progress. If they touch it, it will record which floor they have progressed to. The adventurer can guess that these kids are new here since they do not even know that much. He welcomes them to the second floor and informs them that they call this place the Forest of Gluttony. Compared to this place, the first floor is just a walk in the park. When Astolfo asks about the place they are standing in, the adventurer tells him that this hut is the sole safe haven on this entire floor. Dorma can guess that everyone here comes to challenge the second floor, but the adventurer says that most of them gave up trying to progress. He says that if they try to progress, they will soon find out why soon enough. The strength of monsters here is on another level entirely. Not only that, the place is very difficult to get around as well. Dorma asks why they have been still here if they cannot even make a progress, so the adventurer tells him that they may not be able to progress to the next floor, but this floor is still very profitable. There are a lot of them choosing to stay here to collect goods to sell for money. Kyle finds all this talk pathetic as he has no interest in standing around and talking to a bunch of quitters. He asks his boys to get going, but Astolfo is polite enough to bow to the adventurer as he thanks him for teaching them of this place so much. His attitude even surprises the adventurer, and once he is about to leave, the adventurer stops him to warn about the beetles. He says that their shells are very hard, so they cannot even think of attacking them head-on. He advises them to get out of there if they see one because if they do not keep their wits, they could end up dead. Astolfo thanks him once again as they leave, but the adventurer comments that he did not think such a serious person still existed these days. Once the gang gets out of the hut, they are amazed by the Forest of Gluttony. At this point, it is pretty obvious that every floor has a completely different vibe. Astolfo notices that there's fruit everywhere in this forest and the whole place has a very fresh and fruity scent. Not only that, these fruits are all perfect and look so tasty. Dorma asks if these are okay to eat, but the brain of the gang, Kyle, tells them to leave the fruits because they are still in the dungeon, so who knows what kind of trap is waiting for them. They do not have enough information about this place yet, so they decide to just look around for now and leave. If this were not inside a dungeon, these fruits would be making Kyle very hungry right now. He wonders if this is why this place is known as the Forest of Gluttony. While looking around, Astolfo asks Dorma if he can borrow his mace again. Dorma gives a go-ahead because they have no idea what they will face, so it is better if the vanguard has a strong weapon. However, he adds to not break the mace because it costs 300,000 yen. Astolfo, the poor boy, panics just hearing the amount and promises that he will be careful. He wonders what the adventurer meant by being careful of the beetles. Dorma wonders if he meant to be careful of the bugs in general, but never mind beetles, there does not seem to be any bugs in this area. They decide to keep looking with their guards up because this is one spooky place. Kyle notices that even the path is weird because it looks like the trees were planted on a row like this on purpose, but who would have come and done such a thing? Moreover, there are these unnatural fruits that look like they are just waiting for one of them to reach out and touch. He feels like something non-human is exerting its will on this place. Kyle has been quiet for some time, so Astolfo asks if he is okay, but Dorma's way of worrying is all tsundere as he says that he should take things seriously because if something happened, he would be the first to die. As they continue, they hear a rustle and instantly come in formation because they cannot see a thing with all these leaves, so they do not know which direction the attackers are coming from. Astolfo is suddenly attacked and he manages to stop it using his armed guard, but still gets pushed back regardless. Turns out these are the beetles they have been warned about, and these things are way too strong. The gang is against flying beetles, which are as big as their heads, and there's more of them. Astolfo remembers the adventurer's advice of not taking them head-on, so he tells the boys to run because they cannot clump up in one place like this. As they are running, the beetles chase after them and attack at the same time. If it were not for the armor, that attack would have pierced right through Astolfo. He tries attacking, but they are way too fast for him to hit. He has no idea what he should do as he is surrounded by them. Doram asks Kyle if he can use some magic, but he says that the beetles are moving too fast, so there is no time to aim. However, he still uses Ice Storm spell right at the beetles and Astolfo. Doram gets worried, but Kyle tells him that his spell is not that strong. Now the beetles buzz towards Kyle, but he uses Heat Web to slow them down. He got the idea that no matter how hard their shells are, even they can't be able to deal with sudden temperature changes. Seizing the chance, Astolfo hits them hard against the tree to finally deal with them. They still cannot believe that they really got them since the beetles were so strong, but it just shows that they really are on a different floor. Kyle asks if they are going to fight more of them moving forward, because this floor is going to be really annoying if that's the case. If one were to let the beetles surround them and could not run away, the beetles would end the game before the person could even try to defend themselves. They were attacked just as they were trying to explore the area to come up with a strategy for how to conquer this floor, but it looks like that was a self-ending mission from the start. Astolfo and Dorma proceed to collect the beetles' magic stone, giving Kyle time to look around. He thinks that when the group back at the hut said this floor was profitable, they were probably talking about these fruits. They must have been trying to collect the fruit while fighting off those beetles. In other words, they must all at least be strong enough to fight off those beetles. He wonders if this floor really is so profitable for them that it's worth remaining here and not moving on. Or maybe there's something else stopping them from advancing. Istolfa's startled voice urges Kyle to go to his side, but finds out that it's just the shell that is so hard that Istolfa cannot pierce it at all. Istolfa realizes that if he did not have Dorma's mace with him during the fight, they would be toast. Kyle says that they probably won't be able to continue much further on this floor with that dagger that Istolfa has now, so they should at least get him something one rank higher at the very least. Istolfa also agrees that they have no choice but to buy better equipment, but that being said, high-level weapons do not come cheap. They decide to save up from now on, but Dorma suggests just leveling up his weapon because Istolfa's dagger is a dungeon weapon. However, Kyle says that it would too much time to do that and they had to destroy a whole army of goblins just to fix a scratch on it. At this point, Dorma reveals that he actually learned a new spell during the time they have been fighting, and it is called Magic Stone Synthesis. Instead of striking the stone, it is a spell that uses magic to combine them together. That way, all of the magic goes into the sword without escaping into the air. Using this spell, they can level up the sword several times faster. Dorma thinks that this method would be way more efficient than just spending more money, so it is definitely worth a shot. Kyle also agrees and is about to give all the stones he has picked up on their way through the first floor. However, Istolfa asks if he is sure about using all of their profit just on his sword. Both Kyle and Dorma tell him to not worry about it because they are more than happy to help if it can make him become stronger. After all, they are on the same team. Istolfa thanks them as they gather the stones, and Dorma casts a magic stone synthesis spell. Istolfa is amazed, but Kyle doubts it would work. Soon, the magic stones embed into the dagger with a flash of light, and Dorma is all done. He hands the sword to Istolfa, who cannot believe that it is his dagger. It is incredible because you can tell it is stronger than before by just looking at it. Dorma explains that it is because the beetles' magic stones are a lot bigger compared to the goblins, and just the stones they picked up today made this sword considerably stronger. Istolfa is super excited as he thanks Dorma, who is determined to collect more and more to make the sword even stronger. Kyle still thinks that it is strange that a weapon can become strong by absorbing more magic, and Istolfa agrees. Dorma says that the details surrounding the dungeon and its existence are unknown in the first place, so it makes perfect sense that there are things they cannot understand about it. Kyle sums it up by saying, expect the unexpected, because nobody really knows the reason why this place exists or the beings that exist within it, so it is like they are reading in a bottomless swamp. It is too much nerdy stuff for Istolfa and Dorma to think about, so they say that there is no point in thinking about it now because they only need to think about conquering this floor. Kyle sighs as he agrees with them and says that since they are good with weapons for now, they need to come up with a strategy next. However, before they can talk more about it, something snorts in the bushes. They find that a weird-looking boar has appeared before them. Dorma can tell that its outer shell looks just like hardened armor, but his train of thought stops when he notices another one of the boar behind them. In a frenzy, he starts running away in tow with the other two, but when Istolfa asks the reason for running away, Dorma tells him that the thing chasing after them is an armor boar, also known as the berserker of the jungle. They are ferocious beasts feared by adventurers. It has almost caught up to them and slams into a tree, but the group can tell that if that thing slammed into them, they would be smashed into pieces. Dorma claims that he once saw an adventurer covered in gold copper armor crushed flat right before his eyes, so for now, they just need to get out of here. They remember that the hut back then is supposed to be a safe haven, so they run towards it. Once they reach the hut, they are already out of breath, but the adventurer welcomes them back. Kyle is done for because he cannot seem to take another step as he lies there wheezing. Looks like exploring any further will not be easy, so they decide to not overdo it and continue it the next day. Once the gang is back at the inn, Sela smiles at them for being chased by an armor boar. However, Kyle snaps at her for laughing while they were almost flattened like pancakes. Stella apologizes because she just could not help herself, but tells them that it is true that an armor boar's charge is a threat, but it is not impossible to overcome. She can guess that these kids were so overcome with fear of the boar's mere existence that they were not paying attention to it at all. She advises them to observe the boar's movements the next time they run into one. Istolfa heeds her words, so she praises him and decides to give another hint as a reward. She says that every floor of the dungeon has its own rules, so they need to try and think back. The first floor had its own defined quirks, so naturally, the second floor has its own rules. The first floor is a blinding grassland. It seems like a large open space at first glance, but in reality, one has no idea what will sneak up on them. She asks if they see all those fruits on the second floor, and when she gets an affirmative answer, she continues to say that as long as they continue to eat the fruit, the monster will not attack them. That is the rule of the second floor. Kyle can now understand why the adventurers staying in the hut have no problem staying there to collect the fruit. Astolfo asks if they should eat those fruits as well, and the answer he receives is absolutely not. Stella tells them not to even think about it if they want to progress to the next floor, and most importantly, if they want to live, they should not even think about it. The gang is shocked to hear that, but when they ask the reason, she says that is for them to find out by themselves. She tells them to take a good look around because not everything is as it appears. The gang once again enters the dungeon, but the black orb of progress teleports them instantly to the second floor, so it is really convenient that they do not have to go all the way through the first floor. However, the strange thing is that there is no one in the hut at this time around. Their first guess is that everyone's outside maybe, and Kyle is happy to get some quiet time because it is the perfect time to discuss their strategy. Astolfo notices something and asks Dorma where he got his shield from. Dorma tells them he has this specially made for defending against forest enemies. It can harden up their defenses in the rear so Astolfo can focus on dealing with enemies from the front, and it also makes it easier for him to defend against enemies attacking from behind. Astolfo apologizes for not being strong enough, and for a change, even Kyle apologizes for making Dorma work so hard to protect him. However, Dorma says that it is everyone's responsibility to think of ways to improve their defenses. Astolfo thinks that it is too heavy for Dorma to carry it, but gets lost in thoughts, wondering if Dorma is a boy or a girl. Dorma can see his worries, so he explains they do not need to worry because he has gotten a lot stronger since they first started fighting in this dungeon. Talking about improvement, they already noticed that Kyle's magic has gotten a lot more reliable recently, so he tells them he has more control over his magic than before. The spells are lacking power, but now he can help with attacks, even if it's just a little bit. Dorma teases him about his physical strength, but Kyle is determined to get you stronger than him at no time. To ease the situation, Astolfo suggests discussing their strategy, so they do it. According to the information received from the guild, the guardian of the second floor is known as Man-Eater. As always, Dorma seems to know all about it and says that if it appears in the forest, it must be exterminated immediately. To put it simply, it is a gigantic man-eating plant monster that is bright red and has a bunch of creepy vines growing from it. Also, there is another monster that appears on this floor that he needs to tell them about, so he asks for their attention. Once they are done discussing, Astolfo asks Kyle if he learned anything about those fruits Stella was talking about, but Kyle just knows that if they eat the fruit, the monsters won't attack them. They wonder if fruits have natural resistance to monsters, but who knows because they will never find out about it just hanging around here, so they head out to fight in the dungeon. After fighting a bunch of monsters, one thing is clear: all the monsters here are really strange but fit right into the forest atmosphere. Kyle is running out of stamina at this point, and they would not get their pay if they cannot make it back, but before they can come to a decision, an armor boar approaches them. Kyle and Dorma start running, but Astolfo seems to be standing in front of it head-on. He remembers Stella's words that an armor boar's charge is a threat, but is not impossible to overcome. He knows that Stella would not have said that if it was something he could not do, so he needs to calm down and observe carefully. The armor boar charges at him at full speed, throwing Astolfo on the ground. Dorma runs to his side for support, but Astolfo says that he gets it now. He thought so yesterday as well, but once that things start to charge, it can only move straight forward. On top of that, it is unable to move for a split second when it does. In short, the armor boar does not have control over its power or speed. The brain of the gang thinks for a while and comes up with a strategy, saying to leave it to him. He steps forward and he goes like, "Hey pig, come at me." Even a rude Dorma thinks that it was a cheap insult, but the armor boar seems offended as it starts charging at Kyle. This was the opportunity Kyle was looking for, so he used freeze shot magic to stop the armor boar in its attack by binding its legs with magic. However, as the armor boar struggles to free itself, it trips and falls down. Dorma is surprised at the turn of events, but Kyle explains that it is the same logic as pulling its legs. They could have easily taken it down by setting up a rope trap, but Kyle used magic instead of rope. In this case, it is only a level 1 spell, but it can be pretty strong if charged with plenty of magic. And even though the ice breaks instantly, it is strong enough to keep the boar's feet stuck to the ground. Therefore, regardless of its speed, it is still being caught by an unexpected force. Kyle proudly presents his strategy, and his friends cannot help but praise him because, in the end, they defeated an armor boar. Once the work is done, they start getting their well-earned magic stone. They also notice when they struggled to get the beetles' magic stone that as long as they were touching the dead monster, it did not vanish. This whole time, they thought they had to rush to get the stone quickly before it disappeared. So there are probably a lot of things they have been mistaken about. Kyle hears the word mistaken as he contemplates what Stella said about things not being as they appear. He wonders what else applies to it. She said that was for them to find, but it still ticks him off even now the way she worded it in a stupid, confusing way. Just then, another adventurer appears, saying that it is very impressive of them to defeat an armor boar. The gang is at its guard, but the adventurer remains nonchalant as he says that it is no way to greet an elder. He knows that these kids just came down from the first floor just yesterday because he was in that hut when they arrived. He is heading back to the hut and asks if they care to join him because he is willing to answer any of the questions they have about this place. The gang whispers among them about what to do because they were also planning on heading back, but they wonder if they can trust his fellow. Kyle says that the man seems to know his stuff so they can use this opportunity to learn more about this place. Besides, if anything happens, the three of them can deal with it. So they start following the man back to the hut. On the way, Kyle points out that the adventurer is a little under-equipped, but he says that he's fine like this because he does not have to worry about monsters attacking him. Dorma asks if he also ate those fruits, so the adventurer says he did because it is nice to be able to move around freely and there is nothing to worry about as long as they do not try to progress to the next floor. Istolfa asks what he means by that, so the adventurer explains in the forest of gluttony, humans only exist as prey to be eaten by the predator monsters because that is true of this floor. However, eating the fruits turns all of that on its head. It seems that by eating the fruit that grows on this floor, they are put on an equal level to monsters in the hierarchy. That being said, monsters may no longer attack them, but they are no longer able to oppose the floor guardian now that it is directly above them, meaning that they cannot progress to the next floor. Istolfa asks if he is okay with that, but the adventurer says that if they keep aiming to go higher, they will never run out of sky, and by standing here, he never has to worry about going hungry, and that is all that matters to him. Kyle thinks it is a boring life to never move forward and just exist with no aim for direction. There is no difference between doing that and being dead, but that seems to make Kyle realize something. He tells his boys to wait as he says that if what the adventurer just told them is true, it is completely different from what Stella told them. The other agree as well, so Kyle starts heading to the hut to ask something else, but they hear a terrifying shriek from inside the hut. The first guess is a monster attack, but the monsters should not be able to attack someone who eats those fruits. But there is an important thing they forgot that Stella told them: most monsters won't be able to attack you. If you want to live, don't even think about eating the fruit. The door of the hut creaks open, so the gang takes their positions. Istolfa asks about Kyle's stamina, so he tells them that he managed to recover a little bit, but he is far from full power. Dorman informs them that something's coming, and before them stands someone. They wonder if it is a monster because they do not have any information about a monster that looks like that. It seems stronger than anything they have fought so far on this floor and has an ominous feeling to it. Before Istolfa can guess it, the monster is already in front of him and fighting. Istolfa tries to keep up, but it is so fast that he does not even notice until it is right in front of him. He has never seen anything like this before, and he is about to be attacked because when he looks at its eyes, he cannot seem to be able to move. Fortunately, Kyle hits the monster with his magic that stops it for a while, but it gives them enough time to run from the scene. The gang manages to escape for now, but there is no way they can defeat that thing. And it is a matter of time before it finds them again. They have no idea what that was, but eating the fruit does not mean that all monsters won't attack, which means that there are some monsters who are exceptions to this floor's rule, and that thing must be one of them. Kyle asks Istolfa about his experience when he faced off with that thing, so he tells them that it is fast and had this ominous feeling about it. Moreover, he thinks that it still has not shown its true powers yet. Dorma asks if they should run away for now because if Istolfa cannot keep up with that thing, they do not stand a chance either. But the thing is, they do not think they can even escape it, but how are they supposed to fight it if they do not even know what it is? It is impossible to escape from it with that speed, and if they are not fast enough, it could catch them as they are climbing the stairs. Kyle might know a few spells that could slow it down, but not the mana he has now. If he is lucky, he might be able to let off one small spell. The brain of the gang does not know what to do because the more and more he thinks about it, the less he is sure what to do. However, his friends tell him to not rot his brain worry too much. For now, they need to work hard together because they can do anything together. Kyle agrees, but he asks if he can do something about its speed. Would that be enough to deal with it? Kyle does not know any magic that can restrict speed, but he knows another type of magic that might do the trick. Kyle and Dorma are hiding in the bushes, but the monster finds them and attacks. However, Istolfa charges at it from behind, engages in a battle, and manages to catch it off guard. Thanks to Dorma's light weapon spell, he can move much easier now. Although he cannot rely on the weight of his sword to do the work either, but he does not need it. He manages to slice off one of the monster's arm that is holding the weapon and is about to finish it off, but when the monster looks at him, he is unable to move his body. Kyle asks what is wrong, but Dorma can tell that it is a curse enveloping Istolfa's body. The monster kicks Istolfa, rendering him breathing, and if he cannot do anything, it would be the end. However, Kyle uses a freeze shot to stop it in its tracks while Dorma uses a light weapon because he needs to break the curse somehow. He throws his shield towards the monster and Astolfo can move again. Astolfo lands a final blow to end the monster for good. They have finally defeated the monsters but need to get out of there before they are attacked by more monsters. Before leaving, Dorma watches the body vanishing, which proves that it was a monster after all. They have finally made it out of the dungeon in a haggard state. Kyle cannot even move an inch because they had to walk all the way back here on foot after the fight, so Dorma suggests bringing an orb of return with them next time. Stella, who appeared out of nowhere, laughs at them saying that they have seen better days. Astolfo is happy to see her, so they start walking together while Stella asks them about their adventure. Astolfo tells her they were able to defeat the armor boar by paying close attention to it. Stella praises him as she hugs him, but Kyle reminds her they are still in the middle of the street and asks what she meant when she said they could end up dead if they ate the fruit. She glances at them and says that since the owner of the robe that Dorma is holding right now was pretty strong, they would not have been able to defeat it if they had let their guard down eating the fruit. Yup, that is all she meant. Quite a roundabout way of saying that. Astolfo says that old guy must have been pretty lucky because there is no way he could have fought that thing with the equipment he had. Stella is curious about what they are talking about, so they tell her that back at the hut, there was another adventurer who was attacked before they were, but when they went back to look, they did not see his body. That is why they think that he managed to get away, because the hut is supposed to be a safe haven after all. Stella listens but asks if they really believe it to be true because that monster also attacked the hut, so how can the hut be safe? She asks who told them that it was safe in the first place, but Kyle realizes that those adventurers believed the hut was safe, and that is what they told. Stella tells them that they call the hut the Forest Watchman's hut. She asked if they think that the watchman would let those arrogant punks who cause trouble and steal fruit from the forest get away. Dorma says that they did not see any bodies, so Stella tells them eating the fruit puts them on the same level as monsters, so what happens when the monsters die? They vanish, so there were no bodies found at the hut. But this is just a guess based on Stella's own observations. Besides, how could there be a truly safe haven in a dungeon meant to test adventurers? That dungeon is really more terrifying than they thought. Astolfo is all alone today and has no idea what to do. Dorma is spending his first day off in a long time exploring the town while Kyle is in his room studying magic. A while ago, Astolfo brought the beaten-up armor to Fleet and apologized because he just sold it to him. There is something Fleet has been meaning to say for a while, and now seems like a perfect time. He says that Astolfo's gear may be meant for beginners, but it is still top of its line. As long as Astolfo does not act too recklessly, there is no reason for it to be tattered in such a short amount of time. So if he keeps on continuing like this, he would not be around for much longer. Once Astolfo apologizes, Fleet tells him to leave the armor with him for a few days for him to fix it, and even forbids Astolfo from going to the dungeon until it is fixed. Astolfo is shocked to hear that, but Fleet tells him to quit grumbling and just take a few days off. Astolfo does not want to burden Kyle and Dorma, but they do not mind. Besides, even before entering the dungeon, Astolfo has never once taken a day off, so he should learn how to rest once in a while. The two of them decide to go report today's events to the Adventurers Guild and tell him to enjoy himself. They dare him to worry about money while giving him one-day vacation. Astolfo thought it was better to go outside but had no idea how to spend his money. He is not supposed to worry about money, so he cannot go to the guild. And just as he is wondering what else to do, Key happens to be passing by and calls him. He shares that he does not know how to spend his day off because he has always spent every day trying to make money to survive. Key thinks for a while and tells him that she is on her way to shopping and he can tag along if he wants. He might find something that strikes his fancy, so he asks if he can tag along and Key happily agrees. Kid wants to hold hands because there are a lot of people around and they do not want to get separated, so they do that. She pulls him to different places but hears someone talk about how shabby Astolfo looks. She can see that he has tattered clothes on, so she suggests going shopping for clothes. Astolfo thinks that his clothes are still good, but she tells him that there is more to clothes than just function. So they decide to stop by the shops where adventurers go. Astolfo tries on new clothes that look good on him, but the shop owner teases Key by saying that she just wants her boyfriend to dress nicer because it must have been embarrassing going on a date with him dressed like this. Key gets flustered as she says that it is not a date, but Astolfo also thinks that his clothes were not suitable for walking around together with Key, so he must have embarrassed her. When she asks what is wrong, Astolfo admits that he was not paying attention this whole time and asks her to go shopping with her a little longer because there's still a lot more he wants to know. The day passes fast just like this, so they decide to find a place to eat. Astolfo says that he can eat a horse, so Kay tells him she knows a place that is cheap and delicious. She says that it is a place targeted to locals, so it is a little out of the way, but she and her dad go there all the time. Astolfa thanks her for the day because he was able to learn about normal things outside of being an adventurer, and it really gave him a whole new outlook on life. At first, Key wants to deny doing anything special, but then says that this could be his normal as well because he has changed from how he was before, so he does not need to be an adventurer. She soon realizes that she should not have said that, apologizes, and runs away. Astolfa wonders if he has really changed. The reason he wanted to become an adventurer was to make money and become stronger so he could get out of the position he was in. So why is he aiming to be a top-class adventurer now? However, before he can ponder on this a little more, he hears Key's voice and goes to check. He finds that 2 adventurers have taken Key, saying sorry for ruining your date. They seem to recognize Astolfa as the rookie everyone's at the guild talking about. Their logic is that if any more people join the guild, everyone will have to start fighting for quests, and they do not want that, so they need to nip the problem in the bud. Astolfa can see that these guys are newbie hunters, but they threaten to harm Key if he makes a move. Astolfa is worried about Key, but the man punches him in the face. The other guy tells his buddy to hurry up because the sound barrier he put up is not perfect. Astolfa gets up, manages to trip one of the guys, and takes Key to run away. However, the other guy is a mage, so he starts attacking both of them as they run. At this moment, Astolfa wishes that he was stronger to protect Key and wants to get stronger. The mage's spell disappears, shocking him. Stella steps forward, who notices the random barrier and decides to check it out. She is angry that some stupid brat is tormenting her previous apprentice and immediately heals the 2 of them, telling them to rest for now. The mage shrieks as he tells her to stay away. He threatens that he is a silver rank and there is no one else that can rival his magical abilities. However, Stella just needs to kick him once as she says that the mage is not even worthy to ride home about. Anyone can get stronger just by training, so there's no limit to it. She asks Astolfa about his wounds and says that Dumbass will not show his face here again, so they can go now while she cleans it up. While leaving, Astolfa thanks her for saving them. Since there is no limit to it, he can get stronger if he puts in the effort, and maybe someday he can become an adventurer strong enough to protect others like Stella. Determined, he tells Key that he does not want a normal life because he wants to be a top-class adventurer. Key understands but makes a request to not just become a strong person because she likes his kind side as well. Hearing that, Astolfa promises to become properly strong. After reading a letter, Stella comes to the sleeping Astolfa's side as she thinks that time moves fast because looks like he will be clearing the 2nd floor soon. She is sure that there is nothing he cannot overcome even on his own. The gang is against the guardian of the forests, which is literally a living tree. Kyle asks the 2 of them to get away as he uses a flame blast against it, burning it to ashes. With that, they have successfully defeated the man-eater. That means that they have finally conquered the 2nd floor. They have really gotten a lot stronger since they first met, and it is hard to believe that goblins used to give them trouble in the past. However, Astolfa says that he still wants to get even stronger, so the other 2 observe him and say that he has changed and has certainly gotten a lot calmer. Anyway, they can finally say goodbye to this gloomy forest and hope that the next floor is brighter. They are excited to see whatever the next floor holds, and even Kyle agrees that it is better to look on the bright side. Astolfa is sure that he can go anywhere with these 2, and even past the boundaries of their limits. Just after 3 months, the Adventurers Guild congratulates them on completing the 5th floor as they hand over their rewards and praise the team Gladio. The other adventurers also praise them, saying that they will be in bronze class any day now. Kyle escapes the guild, saying that these guys do not change no matter what. They decide to head to the dungeon after that, but Astolfa wants to go report the good news to Stella first. Seems like he does not need to look for her because she is already hugging and praising him for making it past the 5th floor so quickly, saying that she is proud as his teacher. Kyle points out that he always appears out of nowhere and asks if she has something to do with the guild. However, she says that she has something to do with Astolfa and borrows him just like that. Kyle is surprised, but she is already gone before he can react. She really gets on his nerves. Stella takes Astolfa to Fleet's shop to get him a new gear because she thinks it is a good time. Plus, she wants to get him a present to celebrate. Astolfa wants to refuse it, but she pulls out the teacher's orders card as she tells him to just accept her present. Fleet also chips it that while it is true that short swords are mainly a weapon for beginners, the downside is that these lack any kind of finesse and there is a limit to what these can do. He thinks that Astolfa should step out of his comfort zone with new weapons as he progresses floors. Astolfa doubts he can handle it, but Fleet assures him that he is no longer a beginner, so no matter what weapon he chooses, there is nothing he cannot handle. Since low self-esteem is handled, Stella asks to bring out a good and a strong weapon. Fleet asks her to be more specific, but still goes to find something good. Fleet proudly presents his collection and thinks that the falchion Astolfa is holding is pretty good. It is a single-edged sword designed for chopping down enemies, and depending on how he uses it, he can even chop down enemies wearing armor. When Stella asks, Astolfo tells her that it is not heavy at all and seems good, so Stella proceeds to pay for the weapon. Astolfo thanks her like a good boy, but she says that this sword is nothing but a tool to help him overcome the next 4, so he should use it however he likes. She says that it is just like when she gave him that coin. He's grown so much until now by making his own choice, so no matter what, he will eventually reach the goal he's aiming for. Astolfo hears some chattering outside and finds that Kyle and Dorma are waiting for him outside. Once they find out that he has got a new sword, they decide to head to the dungeon to test it out. Astolfo greets Stella as he leaves, while Fleet and Stella both agree that they make a great party. The gang enters the 6th floor, which is named as the Phantom City of Memories. It is somehow similar and different to the city they just left behind, but all signs are written in a language they do not understand. The know-it-all Kyle tells them that the writing belongs to an ancient language that is no longer used, and this city appears to be a recreation of the ancient mercenary kingdom of Saradia. However, he is not 100% sure because it has not existed for thousands of years. But he does know that to get past this floor, they need to find keys hidden around the city that each individual person can recognize. The meaning is still unclear, but that is all the information they have. So their only choice is to look around. They enter a door and while looking around inside get attacked by something. Astolfo manages to save Dorma while Kyle informs that it is a monster that appears on this floor called a phantom. The phantom calls Astolfo a thief as it charges at him, but Astolfo easily manages to deal with him because the phantom is not that strong. Kyle contemplates that if it appeared here, then that means that the house used to belong to that phantom. The monsters that appear on this floor are all humanoids who live and work in the surrounding houses and shops. They look around and it is as if there are still traces of the people who live here. There is some kind of warmth left, like the kind you get from homemade meals. Astolfo cannot believe that Dungeon created something like this, and is about to say that if this is the recreation of an ancient city, then that means that those phantoms used to be real people, but Kyle tells him to stop because they are just monsters now, and the fact that they leave behind magic stones when they die proves it. If they think too much about it, they will be too distracted to fight, so for now, they need to focus on finding those keys. They continue on, but Dorma has lost count of houses they have searched, but still have not found anything. However, things never go as planned, and since they have to fight off phantoms in all of the houses, Kyle is running out of stamina. Suddenly, the place gets dark all of a sudden, indicating that it is nighttime right now. Still, that was way too fast, so Kyle understands something and tells them to hide. The other two want to ask something, but he shushes them out as they watch an adventurer get attacked by monsters. Kyle explains that nighttime is when the phantoms of robbers and evil people come out. They are much stronger than the ones appearing during the day, so it will be dangerous to walk around carelessly. However, they cannot just stay hidden here and are pretty far from the exit. Astolfo suggests going inside the church for now, so they enter. There do not seem to be any phantoms, so they decide to spend the night and look for keys in the morning. They are still talking when someone tells them to be quiet since it is a church. The gang is instantly on their guard, but the individual says that is a rude way of greeting another human being. Astolfo realizes that the person is a human, but the human still attacks a lingering phantom behind. The new guy is really fast and wonders if he should introduce himself, but wants to know their names first. The new guy says that generally when you go to someone's home, you introduce yourself first and demand the gang of their names. Astolfo observes that he seems to be an adventurer about the same age as them and introduces himself and his friends. Kyle scolds Astolfo for giving out their personal info to such a sketchy guy, but Astolfo, our sweet boy, says that the person helped them back there. Even the new guy laughs that Astolfo introduced themselves first, even though he was the one who asked, and admits that he is just messing around. He tells them that his name is Notes with a smile. When they ask what he is doing in the church, Notes like nothing in particular. It is not unusual for adventurers to pray in a church. Notes can guess that the gang saw this place while running away from those violent phantoms, so Astolfo tells him that they are thinking of spending the night here. Notes observes them and says that aside from Astolfo, the other two do not look like much. He even says as rude as that Kyle and Dorma do not look like they have worked out a single say in their lives. Kyle is very much offended, but Notes says that he is right. It appears that they have only made it this far because they were being carried by Astolfo. He can tell just looking at them. He says that he cannot stand people who rely on others to lead them through everything. Notes leave both Kyle and Dorma speechless, but Astolfo stands in front of his friends to tell Notes that is not true at all. He says that there are a lot of things he cannot do, but they can, and he would never have made it this far on his own without their help. There is no one else in this dungeon he can rely on more than these two. Dorma and Kyle are touched by his words, and he sure does know to cheer them up. Notes admits that he misunderstood them, but that does not mean that he is apologizing because he does not bow his head for anyone. Kyle finds the guy annoying, so he suggests going since he is feeling better now. Notes tells them to hold up because he thought they were staying until morning, but Kyle makes it clear that he cannot stand to be around someone as annoying as him. Notes decides to lend them a hand since the gang seems to be having a hard time with this floor and suggests it would be easier with more people. Kyle is still wary of him, so he asks for his real motive, but Notes does not beat around the bush when he announces that he has been interested in Astolfo the moment he saw him. Kyle is about to get him, but Notes explains that Astolfo and he use similar weapons and fighting styles, so he thought they would make good friends. Also, there's something he is looking for, and there is no way he would be able to obtain them on his own, so he wants to let him join their team to search for them together. The hang discusses that it is fine to let him tag along because he does not seem like a bad person, and Dorma does not get the feeling he is lying at all. They wonder what he can even do, but Notes is already at the front of the church, facing a church priest phantom. They tell them to watch out, but he is all chill as he eliminates the phantom using a single strike, saying they have not seen anything that he can do yet. The gang panics about how he did that, but Notes is kind enough to tell them that he used his death blade and all his swords can eliminate an enemy in one hit. Astolfo finds it amazing because he did not realize Notes used anything at all. Notes once again says that he and Astolfo are a lot alike, so he is sure that Astolfo will be able to learn how to use it someday. Astolfo tells him that it is impossible because he does not have any mana, but Notes says that he does not use magic as well because he cannot sew a sword is all he uses. There is no denying that not being able to use magic is a weakness, but it is because of that weakness that Notes can do it now. He says that it is an advantage that makes up for his weak spot, and he is even willing to teach Astolfo. Dorma teases Kyle that he does not seem too happy about the fact that those two have become fast friends, and Kyle admits that he does not know a thing about swords. He is telling them to plan on their next move if they are done with the pleasantries when something approaches them. Notes seems pretty excited that more friends have decided to join the party and estimates that there are about 5 or 6 of them. Soon they are surrounded from all sides. Dorma says he should have known the robbers would not care about the sanctity of the church, while the others are ready to fight. Notes seems like a menace when he is fighting, but Astolfo supports him by covering his blind side. Dorma also fights by using his heavy weapon, but when the phantom stops his attack and is about to attack him, Kyle comes to the rescue with his fireball magic. He quickly rushes to Dorma asking if he is okay, and when he makes sure that his friend will live, Kyle sees that the other two have also taken care of things on their side. In the end, they got them all, even if those nighttime ones are something else. Notes does not leave the chance to tease Kyle about his stamina and says that he looks like he's about to die. However, Dorma still repeats his words inside his head. It appears that you have only made it this far because you were being carried by Astolfo. He thinks that Kyle and Astolfo do not need his strength or his magic, so if he keeps on going as he is, he's going to hold back the party. Even now, Astolfo is still continuing to improve, so if he does not get better as well, he will be left behind. Dorma is thinking about what to do when Notes calls him and verifies that he is a priest. He says that he saw him fight back there and admits that Dorma can really move. Notes says that with those skills, there must be another job that would fit Dorma better. Even Kyle has never heard of a priest who fights with weapons before. Notes says that Dorma is stronger than Kyle, but Kyle asks if he really has to always pick a fight with him. Looks like the place is not safe anywhere, so they decide to go somewhere else. However, Notes claims that he can protect them if anything happens, but Kyle does not trust him enough to put his life in his hands. Dorma raises his hand to ask if they can use the Orb of Return to head back to the surface because he has something he wants to try. There are some feelings that Dorma has not been able to express until now. Astolfo greets Dorma in the middle of the city as he asks if he slept well last night. Astolfo notices that Kyle is not here yet, but Dorma tells him Kyle had something he wanted to look into on his own. Notes said he was going to wait for them on the 6th floor, so they hope he will be okay. With his strength, they do not think he will have any issues, but they should still try to get back as quickly as they can. Astolfo reminds Dorma about the thing he wanted to try, so Dorma asks if he can come with him for a little bit. They arrive at Fleet's armory, and Fleet is not surprised to see them even a little bit. He says he has prepared everything exactly as per Dorma's request last night. Astolfo asks if he bought a new weapon, but Dorma tells him he's going to change, so he needs to wait a bit. After a bit, Dorma comes out with his mithril woven gloves and boots and thanks Fleet for making them the same way he asked. However, Fleet tells him to not mention it because he did pay for all of them, but even he is wondering if a priest is planning to fight with his new outfit. Dorma plans to show what he's going to do and asks for permission to use Fleet's backlot. Once he is granted permission, they head to the backlot, but Astolfo is amazed because he had no idea Fleet had a space like this in the back. Fleet nonchalantly tells him that this is a space meant for testing out weapons, but it costs extra. Dorma asks Astolfo for a duel as he explains that up until now he has been filling the role of the rear guard as he felt it was what the party was lacking. But this whole time he has been wondering if that was the right decision. But it is not enough to only think about what-ifs. Astolfo tells him that he is already a strong and reliable teammate, and Dorma thanks him for thinking so, but he is not satisfied just hearing it. He wants to do more than just supplementing the party. He wants to get strong enough so he can be a true protector of the party. Dorma reveals that he learned a new skill before they entered the 6th floor. He thought it was too strong for his capabilities, so he was not planning on using it, but he now thinks that it was a sign for Meal Chanter. He raises his hand to show his new skill, Fighter's Crest. Astolfo watches the skill and is surprised because Dorma looks so different. Dorma asks Astolfo to come at him if he thinks he is a good teammate. Astolfo catches the sword that Fleet throws towards him, telling him it is a blade made for training. Astolfo thanks Fleet as he faces Dorma. He understands that Dorma wants to improve himself, so it is his responsibility as a teammate and a friend to help him out. So they start the duel and Dorma charges straight at him, but Astolfo blocks the attack using his sword, even though he finds the attack heavy and strong. Dorma charges at him again, manages to push Astolfo a couple of steps backward, and throws his sword far away. Astolfo cannot even see Dorma when he trips, which makes him fall on the ground. Astolfo could not follow his movements at all, so Dorma explains that the Fighter's Crest is an ability that allows him to use his mana to enhance his physical strength. Even though he had the willpower and stamina, he lacked the muscle. Just striking a grass would cause his arm to go numb, but even though he lacked the strength, he was able to make up for it using magic, such as the heavy weapon. In short, with magic, he can slam the ground into pieces. He tells Astolfo to pick up his sword because he can even take him on. Astolfo is impressed and agrees to duel seriously this time. Dorma has done something Astolfo could never imagine. He improves so fast that he really is incredible. Once their heated duel is finished, 2 are well spent. Astolfo says that he has never fought like this before, so he is exhausted, while Dorma thinks he needs to train more. Dorma asks if his new power is strong, but Astolfo says that he always regarded him as strong, but today, he was even stronger. Astolfo really seems to have faith in Dorma's abilities to support the team, so Dorma thanks him as he thinks that he has no choice but to fulfill Astolfo's faith. They decide to rest the night and head back to the 6th floor tomorrow because Notes must be getting impatient. The next day on the 6th floor, Notes and Astolfo fight phantoms side by side and easily deal with them. It truly was easy because they took care of them in the blink of an eye. They decide to look for the keys before more phantoms show up and head inside a bar. The gang is searching, but Kyle is ticked off the fact that Notes is not helping out. Just then, Dorma says that he found one, so they rush to his side to take a look, but it looks like only the person who found it can see it. But they got their first key nevertheless. As they head out, Astolfo thanks Notes for being there, and Kyle also appreciates it because they would not have been able to find the first key without him. Notes tells him to not mention it since it's not like he is here just for him. Kyle is really ticked off that the prick cannot take a compliment. Dorma says that those two do not get along, but Astolfo says that it was the same when they first met, not to mention how Kyle and Dorma still fight. Kyle still does not get this dungeon at all because it recreated this whole town to make them look for a key. They discuss that it almost looks like an act of God, but Notes suddenly curses at God as if it was an act of God. The gang is shocked to hear that, but Notes says that reviving a dead town and everyone in it is a disgusting hobby, and bringing the dead back to life does not sound like a sacrifice a god should do. He questions if the people are even human anymore, but Dorma tells him that phantoms here are just monsters created by the dungeon. Notes admits that it is true, but due to the fact that those apparitions look like humans, he hates this floor and the dungeon that created it. Notes tells them to get moving before it gets dark, but Kyle notices something around the corner, and when he goes there to check, he finds the dead bodies of adventurers. The bodies appear to be fresh, but it is not even night yet, so who could have done this? Astolfo asks if any of the information Kyle bought mentioned anything about it, so Kyle confirms that it must be the 8 warriors of Saradia. It is said that the 8 warriors of Saradia were the strongest warriors in the kingdom other than the mercenary kings themselves. It was not uncommon for even parties of experienced soldiers that went up against them to be completely annihilated. They wonder if those warriors are still around, but Notes suggests looking for them because either way, if they are going to keep going like this, the warriors will end up attacking them eventually, so it would be better to face them with the upper hand. He grins as he tells Astolfo that he is going to show him an interesting monster.